7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting for May 13th, 2025. We'll start with a quorum. It looks like we have a quorum, except David Modell is absent. Is he didn't call in?
Hopefully on his way.
All right, wonderful. All right, so we typically start with community input. We're going to go through appointments and resignations, then a community choice aggregation, contract extension, cemetery, perpetual care discussion, then we'll discuss the Carolyn Hill Scholarship. The annual town meeting will discuss the remaining warrant articles. Then we're going to have a fire station renovation design committee discussion. Town administrator report, warrants and minutes for approval, liaison reports, and then do cemetery deeds, and I'll again have community input, though I will be asking for community input during various sections of the meeting as well. Should we start with something a little different? I'm going to throw things off a little bit, Kate.
Yes. You thought you were going to escape. Sorry.
So I actually will, I think I should turn this over to our state representative, if you wouldn't mind coming forward.
Of course. And members of the board, thank you so much for accommodating me. I did not think that I was going to be able to make it, and I was sad about that because Kate's, very special, obviously, to our community, to me as a friend. Kate, I think what stands out to me about you is the breadth and depth of your service to Carlisle, to Concord, before you moved to Carlisle, not just for the town of Carlisle, which has been fantastic, to our schools, to the arts in our area, and the greater Metro West and Lowell, and beyond that, you're just a tremendous person. So proud to call you a friend. You've been so supportive to me. You've been a mentor in public service, and as you pass the torch to the next generation, I know, I don't just hope, I know that many people will look to your service, the way that you've carried yourself, how diligent and thoughtful and meticulous you always have been as an advocate and as a public servant. So thank you so much for everything. I'm going to miss you. I was really, really sad to hear. Happy for you and Mark, but sad as well that you won't be our neighbor pretty soon. So as you know, and you've been at a number of occasions when I've had the honor to present one of these to a special resident of our community, and today that person is you. I'm so proud and honored to be your state rep and get to present this citation to you. I'll just briefly read it. The House of Representatives for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, be it hereby known to all, that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Kate Reed in recognition of over a decade of dedicated service to the town of Carlisle, and we are in Carlisle, so I'm now mentioning Concord, but I think those who know you know that you did quite a bit for Concord and other communities, characterized by your unwavering commitment, leadership, and lasting contributions to our community. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses the hope for future good fortune, even if it happens to be in France, and continued success in all endeavors. Given today, this 13th day of May 2025, at the State House, signed by me, your state rep, and Speaker Mariano. Thank you so much, Kate.
The kitchen.
Go behind that sound system.
Turn around. Yeah, there you go.
Photo op. It's photo op. It's important.
Yeah.
This is for us.
Thank you. Excellent.
Great.
All right.
You want to do everybody?
Sure.
All
Sure.
right, great.
Yeah.
I pretend to ask.
One more over here. Let's go over there. Short.
Balance it out.
Yeah, tall and short.
Great.
All right.
Nice work, Kate.
Good night, Kate. Thanks for coming out. Oh, you do have to stick around.
May. I'll be back. I'd like to see you.
Good to see you, Simon. Thank you for coming.
Send me that photo, Mr. Selectman.
I will.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks. Thank you, really appreciate it.
I know, that's where I'm gonna
Letting me
have
do this, I know you have a busy schedule. Take care.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Very nice. And very well deserved.
Yep.
Somebody counted up, if you counted all the different volunteer roles you played in Carlisle and the different boards and committees and task forces and the select board, I think it's 27 years.
What, are you talking, well, I've been, yes, actually, it has been 27 years. And of course, there was 18 years in Concord.
Before that, yes, yes. So,
'Cause I was planning board there, and school committee, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we have a parting gift, but it's not ready yet. So
Okay,
this envelope
I
is
hope it's not too big to pack.
It's huge, and it's made out of granite, right?
That's right.
Anyway, we have a card
Yes.
for you that's
Oh,
kind
thank
of
you.
IOU.
The addressed to the Chatelaine.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Really.
Thank you.
I wish you had, but
We did.
Ryan, did you have something?
Oh, it's just, Simon was here, he had a child this week, his fourth.
oh,
oh,
That's why he was,
it's kind of
not
like,
sure he could,
surprised to be here and rushing out, so that
okay,
was for
oh
you,
my
Kate.
God, yeah, it's the fourth boy. Yeah. That boy, I feel sorry for his wife. 5 men in the house, oh my
Yes.
God. Chessie can do it, though, I think.
She can
Anybody
handle 'em,
can, I think
yeah.
she can.
One other item before we move on to community input. We individually, I think, and as a community, have received some feedback relative and information relative to recent arrests that have been taking place by ICE around the communities, and Acton was the most notable one recently. And I know there are residents that are concerned about this, and I just wanted to follow up and publicly just hopefully put people at ease, but also so that we educate everyone in Carlisle as to what our policy is in Carlisle. I had the opportunity to talk to the chief, which I do occasionally, but I talked to him about this in particular, and he reminded me of his statement that he had issued previously, which I think was published in the Mosquito, and I would, read it here, or I can certainly paraphrase it, but the Carlisle Police Department will neither participate in nor obstruct non-criminal ICE federal immigration enforcement as prescribed in the following sections of the U.S. Code. And he goes on to write that the Carlisle Police Department may assist ICE in criminal matters when the following conditions are met: when they present a judicially issued federal arrest warrant, which means a judge issues it. Non-compliance with that would be against the law. If an individual is suspected of federal immigration-related crime, that's in addition to a warrant, and if information sharing with ICE is allowed, it must comply with the public records law. So they're not going to do anything that is outside the bounds of the law, and they're certainly not, assisting when not called for by a judge here. So I just wanted to go on record, and I did ask him today, and he confirmed that there have been 0 inquiries to date from ICE to the police department. So just as an update, and I think that that's important to share with the community. Is there anything else that anyone wants to say?
Well, yeah, thank you for saying that. I think we have a lot to do when it's not on our agenda, and we have to get ready for town meeting, but I would like it if in one of the next few meetings, we take up a real deliberation on whether we ought to be a little more proactive, if only as a statement,
Okay.
that's all.
And we could have the police chief present, too, for a discussion of that, if you thought that was appropriate. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to open it up if there are any comments, questions on any, really on anything. We will be opening up at various times during the discussion for comments and questions on specific items. But if there's anyone who has, in the public here, who wants to make a comment or has a question for the select board? Is there anyone online? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to our appointments and resignations. The first item is the resignation of Alan Lewis from the Environmental Sustainability Committee. Did you see that?
Notified, yeah. I
And,
guess we have to accept his resignation, but with gratitude for his service.
Great. Do we have to, I don't think we have to
I don't think we
vote
have
on
to.
it.
No, it's just,
Just a
acknowledgement.
notification.
Well,
indicate we-
and thank you for your service,
Alan
Alan.
has, I'm sure, served easily as long
Yeah,
as I
well, he's been
have,
on the
so.
select board previously and a number of things.
Thank you for your service, Alan. I see him up on the screen there, so.
And we still have his
Oh, yes,
contact
thank
info,
you, Alan.
correct?
Yeah. Okay, so employees, we have some appointments.
Okay, I move to promote Joe Pitorino to the position of heavy equipment operator for the Department of Public Works effective April 14th, 2025.
second.
Mr. Town Administrator?
Yes.
You want-
In order to be a heavy equipment operator in the town of Carlisle, you need a hoisting license and a CDL license. We have been accepting people with the potential to get those licenses, of course, preferring to get people who already have them. Joe's a great example of someone who did the extra work to obtain these licenses and is now being promoted to heavy equipment operator. Why this is important to you in the town is if someone was to respond during an ice emergency, they would have to wait for someone to load their
It's a different ice, just to be clear.
different ice. Would have to load their truck. They would have to wait for someone with a license to load their truck. This way you can self-load and go. So it gives us more flexibility. So congratulations to Joe.
Yes.
We're hoping you accept his promotion. This was a planned promotion, not a budgeted promotion.
Great. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay.
And I'd like to move to appoint Jeffrey Kotowski to the position of Director of the Council on Aging and Human Services with an anticipated start date of May 19th, 2025.
Wow, that's town meeting day.
Hi, Jeff. I see you there on the screen.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there.
Good evening, board, and thank you all for having me.
It's a little hard to hear you, but maybe
Maybe it's on our side.
maybe it's on our end. Let me just say that I was part of the interview group that met with the various candidates and had the opportunity to talk with Jeff twice. So I am very confident that he will do an excellent job for us. I think we all saw his resume in the packet, but he brings a wealth of experience and a very broad experience, both within the Council on Aging world, but also prior to that as a lawyer. So, Jeff, we are very excited to have you joining us. And would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'd like to thank everybody for the warm welcome that I've already received. It's really been a pleasure throughout this whole application process to get to know the town and the staff as well as the Council on Aging Board. What really drew me to Carlisle is the strong sense of community and the opportunity to be part of this town that values community involvement and its commitment to residents, especially older adults and those vulnerable and those in need. I grew up in a small town, so I saw firsthand the importance of a small municipal government that effectively works for its residents. I worked in municipal services for about 2 decades almost, and eventually became the director of the North Cambridge Senior Center. During my time on the Council on Aging, I've had the opportunity to grow programs from the ground up, rebuild services post-COVID, and work across departments to better serve older adults and vulnerable residents in areas of housing, transportation, and food security. And part of what also drew me to Carlisle is that I'm looking forward to new challenges where I can bring both my experience and my passion for community building to a setting where relationships are personal and the impact is felt deeply. I've always valued working with people. I've always valued work that is also people-centered and collaborative. And I believe that this position really represents an opportunity to be part of a community on a closer level. So I really look forward to stepping into this role. My priority will be to listen to staff, volunteers, board members, and residents. I really want to understand what's working well and how this department can better address the needs of the community. And really, I'd like to review partnerships and explore ways to extend services to residents that, may have barriers to entry in terms of transportation. And lastly, I'm really looking forward to building on the great work that's already been done. I've had an opportunity to speak with staff and council on aging members, and it's really amazing to see the work that's been done. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of that and reinforce the department's role as a valued collaborative part of town government. So I'm very excited to serve Carlisle, and I'm deeply appreciative for the warm welcome that I've already received. I hope you can all hear me. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you can.
Volume is a little difficult.
Yeah.
No, just fine.
Great.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to see you as of Monday, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I'm looking
Excellent.
forward to it.
Assuming you vote for him tonight, yes.
Yeah, assuming you're right.
Monday, the
All right.
COA's go? Oh, the town, Monday?
It's the
The
19th.
19th is
It's
Monday.
Monday.
Oh, he starts Monday, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Monday.
Great.
Hey, just in time for Old Home Day, the new guy has to go in the dunk tank. Just saying.
That'll be exciting.
Maybe we better take the vote first, and then we can explain that.
Right. All right, so there's been a motion, it's been seconded. Any further discussion?
I'll just add that I had the honor of going with the COAHS today to the Edward Munch exhibit in the Harvard Museum, and the staff is pretty excited to have Jeffrey join, so
Good.
that's good endorsement.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, voice vote, all in favor? Aye. None opposed. Welcome aboard.
Can't back out now.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this.
Barney,
Thank you, sir.
you've run out of orange pens?
This
Jeffrey,
was
you're
somebody
welcome to
else's.
stay, but we'll see you Monday.
I don't know where mine went.
You can do it.
Unless he-
Great, looking forward to it. Thank you, Ryan.
All right. All right, so we're going to move on now. Thank you, Jeff. We're going to go to the Community Choice Aggregation Contract Extension. And for this, I believe we have a presentation from our very own Sarah. Awesome.
Yes, in conjunction with Colonial Power Group, who's here to back me up and also provide those more technical energy market details. Yeah, I did put some slides together based on some slides that were made a couple of years ago, because we're already talking about another contract. So looks like Ryan's bringing those up. All right. So we will start with the slide of what we're looking for out of this conversation, which is primarily to authorize Ryan to either accept or reject pricing for the next contract. The time frame we've been given in our discussions with Colonial has been within the next 5 to 6 months, and then also the goal of this is to decide on what price range that is. So that's just an overview, and as a quick background catch up on what is the CCA. The Community Choice Aggregation Program allows residents in Carlisle to choose their electric supplier, so they still get it through Eversource, but they have choices in terms of the composition of that energy. So they can choose from 3 options. There's a standard default option, there's a more basic option, and then there's the optional Green 100, and they're all on this scale of how much green, clean energy is being used to create that electricity. So as you can imagine, the optional Green 100 is 100% renewable energy. Optional basic is doing kind of the bare minimum in Massachusetts, which is still like fairly good compared to other states, but the minimum, and then that standard is in the middle. So as it says, Colonial Power Group is our broker that helps us get these contracts. And in the last year, 84.1% of households in Carlisle are participating in the program. All right. And where we are right now, so our contract that we're in with Dynegy ends in January 2026. And because the market is very much in flux, we're already trying to be proactive and looking ahead to this next contract cycle. And there will be a slide where I'll kind of pass the mic over to Colonial to talk a little bit more about that, where they see the pricing will be, and what they're looking at and what they would advise for us to do. But I can talk a little bit more about the program in Carlisle. So this graph just shows the composition. So of those 84% of households, most of them are in the standard, which is the default. So that's what people are automatically given, and then they could either opt down to the basic, which about 20% have done, or opt up to the optional Green 100, which only 3% have done. And then there is also a small amount of commercial customers who make up the total user group or total participant group in the CCA. And, sorry, can we just go back real quick? Just reviewing my notes. There hasn't been a huge amount of change in the number of enrollments. Standard and basic went down slightly, between like 50 and 100 households over the course of the whole year. Green 100 pretty much stayed flat. It went from like 41 to 40 and then back up to 41. So very, very small margin of change there. And I was looking at the numbers earlier, and it seems to indicate that people aren't shifting from one option to the other. If they drop out, they're just not participating in the program at all anymore. Okay, now I'm ready. For the new contract, you can see there's a large change in savings going from the old contract to the new contract, and that's because the old one was locked in before early 2022, when things changed very drastically in the energy market. So because they were locked in before that, the savings were really remarkable. So this is representing residential meters as a whole versus breaking it out by household, just because each household has a different energetic demand that they're using. So looking at the town savings, all residents compiled, you can see here that when that new contract started, because it was negotiated in the new energy market, obviously the savings did go down a great amount.
Can you explain, Sarah,
Yeah.
I don't quite understand what
Sure.
the two lines are telling you.
Yes, so those three lines are the three different options, so
Right.
standard, basic, Green 100. And the x-axis is what the...
No, I can
Okay, you got
get
that?
So then let me ask you a different question.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
This I forgot already. The one that's 25. The one that most people pick is the blue
top,
or the black.
The black.
And so that's the cumulative savings compared with staying with EverSource and their standard pricing.
Correct.
At that time.
Yes.
Okay. And I see it pops to slightly negative. I mean, I did
Yeah.
see in your first slide. And for whatever reason, EverSource right now is at like 14 cents.
Yeah,
So
it
they
is
got
more
cheaper,
competitive right
and,
now.
Like, what
Yeah.
happened there? Do you know?
Well, that has to
Is
do
that
with the
spot
timing of the
pricing or-
contract,
Okay.
because, EverSource, if we actually go to the next slide, I zoomed in on that
Okay.
section, so this
Yeah.
is just the past year.
I see.
So when you're not enrolled in the CCA, your rates can
Go all
really
over the
just
place.
change.
Sometimes it's a good benefit.
So that's like the benefit and the challenge with the CCA is its consistency.
Right.
Obviously in the last contract, it was so helpful because it was locked in before everything kind of went wild, and
Right.
so it was a little bit of a different story this
So
time.
you're comparing, the EverSource 14 cents is like a spot price? It's like a now price, it's not a lock-in price, right?
Yeah, it's for 6 months at a time.
Oh, it's for 6 months?
6 months at a time, EverSource.
Okay.
That's correct.
And that price it also is already 5 months old, right? 6 months old, because
It
it's
will
a...
change on August
December.
1st.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
Actually went out to bid today for the next
Yep.
price.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's actually good timing because the next slide is, I just said, turned it over to you for the next slide. So it's a good transition point for what you have to share.
Sure. So, Mark Capper, owner Colonial Power, at 5 Mount Royal Ave, Marlboro.
Hi, Julie Sally. Nice to see you. Hi.
So tonight we just wanted to talk about kind of the next leg of the journey, if you will. So far, I think it's been very positive. The program has been up and running, and overall there's been savings. Right now, there's, compared to basic service, we're slightly over, but I think people are enjoying the stability of this and not worrying about the shock that could or could not come, which you've been a benefit of, at least in the past. So moving forward, what we're trying to find out is what the town wants to do from an energy perspective. We were able to get some indicative pricing from the current supplier, and today, we went through a long process with David back and forth, whether we should go 3 years or 2 years. I feel very confident in his choice. It was 2 years, which I think is fantastic because rates have come down. And right now, rates are, looking at, if I'm gonna go to the product that is your default product, pricing is going to come down probably around, just over a penny or so. So it's a beneficial time for you in the marketplace to be looking, depending on what everyone's view of the market is. And I normally have a pretty good grasp of when I'm going to say ISO New England energy futures. This is what I do every day, all day. But I'm going to tell you the current, what I'm going to call the federal administration has things a little bit mixed up. I don't know if you've been watching the equity markets at all. And I'm not certain exactly where everyone else is, but we could have war, we could have peace, we could have tariffs, we could not have tariffs. So right now in the marketplace, I'm seeing some beneficial pricing that I think you could act upon. I'd like to hear what you're thinking from a market perspective. I'm saying to you, you could probably drop pricing into what I'm looking at here from the 15 cents that we're at down to the 14 cents. If you were so inclined. So from at least our perspective, we wanted to make sure that we were here in front of you early so we could see what's going to transpire. I apologize for not having a finger on whether or not we're going to see peace come across Russia and Ukraine or Gaza and Israel, so forth and so on, because that will change things dramatically. It's just when we are here in the marketplace. So from my perspective, I'm here to give you any of our insights, but the big thing is allow Ryan to start seeing some active pricing that we could act on, just so that if you find something that we say looks good, I'm saying to you, the market has sold off from where we were 2 years ago. This is a good thing. From a historic standpoint, we're still not at lows. We're not going to see 9 or 10 cent power just given RPS continues to step up the renewable portfolio standard. But this pricing for today is pretty good. It's pretty good. So from our perspective, if you had any questions, what we're really looking for tonight is you to give Ryan the ability to look at some final pricing that he could act upon if he felt like that pricing was advantageous. The last time around, I'm not offering you up, David. You work very well. I don't know if you want to be the advisor on this again or not. I'm just, from our perspective, the process worked very well the last time around.
So if you are to delegate this to me, then I would assemble and not
Yes.
be directed to assemble a team.
Yep. Whoever you guys choose, of course. Yeah.
Whoever Ryan
chooses. Yes.
Whatever Ryan chooses, right?
Yeah.
in terms of open meeting law.
It works for us. Yeah.
Yes.
But I really don't want to present to David, so I would choose David and some members of the finance team, and then our sustainability team. But it's not my decision, it would be a working group.
Sustainability was on last time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, hey, Mark, I want to ask 3 exculpatory questions. One is, we are locked in whatever we're in till August, like you're doing, do your exercise, you don't change early, right?
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't change the price early unless you wanted to see some blend and extend. Someone could lower the price right now.
You can break the contract, in other words?
Not break, but with the current supplier, you could add on that could bring down pricing
Oh, I
right
see.
now.
You mean if you extended with the current?
That is correct.
All right, so that's question 1. Question 2, and I did this and I forget because it's not that often, but when you opt in, I thought this is like as an individual, utility payer, isn't it for a finite period, and then if you don't renew it actively yourself, it folds back to Eversource? Wasn't there something like that, or no? It automatically goes to the. If once we opt in, it's for the period.
But you can get out at any time.
No, I know, but
Okay.
it seemed like I had to pick a supplier.
No, you had to, so if you were going into the program,
Yeah.
if you weren't part of the original, you'd be moved to what I'll call the 25% more mass class ones. That's the default
Right.
product. Right, so if any of the sweeps are the original.
Yeah, right.
But once you're in the program, you have the choice of opting up to the 100% or down to the
Okay,
means.
but not, I thought there was a choice of suppliers at some point. Maybe that predates
Just-
this.
yeah,
It may be, okay.
Yep.
So ignore that question. Then the last question is when I ask, and I always forget. But like if we're in this blended thing, and there's a wind farm in Texas.
Yes.
And they produce renewables.
Yes.
And I opt in, I'm using natural gas or something here, I'm just trading a credit, right?
That's
all
exactly
I'm
correct.
doing, right?
All you're doing
Only
is
the
buying that
100%.
credit. Yes.
Only the 100% really says my juice is from renewable sources?
It's all, so
I mean, no, my direct juice, my electrons.
no, your electrons are the exact same, and you're just buying the renewable certificates.
Okay, all right.
These happen to be local mass class ones.
Right.
The other ones may be, from Texas,
Right, okay.
national wind product.
Okay.
That's in the 100% green category.
The 100%
No,
green is
100% green
And
is all
the
local.
default is a 25% more
It's
mass
just a
class one
percentage.
rep.
all local mass
Local,
same
so you have an
electrons.
additional.
Yes,
It's just
thank
how-
you.
No matter what,
It's
yeah.
how many certificates, not how many electrons.
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And I just want to say, at a certain point, our contract got to be higher than other contracts, and I've been in and out of several other things and back into here, so and I was signing up for like 3 months.
Right.
And
Maybe
and
that's
then
what I'm
looking,
thinking of.
so you can do that also, that's all, and there's no charge, and you can change as many times as you
When
want.
you're
if you-
retired, you can do that.
Well, what can I
You
say?
have 2 teenagers and a job, you sign and forget about it.
Yeah, okay, but, you
Yeah.
know, so I'm just saying that nobody's locked in to
Right.
anything
Got
at
it.
any time on this, and you can, if you're very, really pinching,
Yeah.
you can follow the market yourself,
Right.
and,
Okay.
do that.
The one thing I would add to that, is many communities in Massachusetts are doing just that. They use this as an energy hedge for the community, meaning everyone can do what they please, but you've now set a hedge, and I'm just gonna use the numbers that are there if you use the same one. So if we did a 22-month, it'd be 14.7, it would come down, but nobody in Carlisle would need to pay more than 14.7. Everyone would have that ability to do that.
Is this on that spreadsheet? Is that what you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
project that from the switch right now.
Did we have, that's in here.
Mark, when you bid these, can you do them individually, or you get a package of the 3 options, and that's how it works? Or how does it?
So these 3 that we're showing, believe it or not, it's perfect, Ryan. So on this sheet, we're showing you all the options, but the ones we were talking about tonight were the products that you'd chosen the last time around. I just want you to know, you do not have to choose those same products. You could make the default the 100%, you could make it the meats. The market has changed, so depending on what you're looking to do, we'll bring that here. So all the options are open, but if you can scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see,
The ones in blue are the current with the extra column at the end showing the potential savings on the next contract. And the other ones in the middle are just other options should you
So
choose to
in
avail.
purple right there, so this is perfect, in purple, this is the default product that you'd be automatically enrolled in. This is 25% more local renewables. Current price is, let's call it 16 cents, 15.9. In the marketplace, starting on January 1, 2026, a similar term, 22 months is 14.788.
That's if you went to market today, that's the today.
Yesterday, that is correct.
Right. So,
Yes.
so back what you're saying, Mark, is if we decide, for example, let's say right now we had to decide, and we could decide simply to extend our term, we would go to that price now?
Not now, that would be on
At the
January.
end of it.
That is correct, in January,
Okay.
the way this pricing is working.
Yeah, okay.
And the term length is months or year?
Yes.
The term
Yeah,
length
months,
is
yeah.
like 10 months or 22?
10 months, 22 months,
Okay.
yes.
What Mark's saying is like, when we looked at this last time, like 10 months is too short, like, then you're doing it right away again.
Right.
We debated the 30-something month and the 20-something month and just felt, as it turns out, what is it? The
Volatility?
Volatility, thank you. The volatility of the market was such that we didn't feel as comfortable with going out 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we face that same VIX again.
Yeah.
No, at least before I was saying, from a historic standpoint, I felt very comfortable not going out as far because, okay, we're at historic highs. Today, it's a different dynamic in the market, and I am saying to you, I just don't know if tomorrow we have a tariff, we don't have a tariff, or if we have
Right.
a war, we don't have a war. I apologize for the lack of direction, but
Yeah.
that's the current marketplace.
Same thing with the euro.
Yeah, poor Kate, stuck with the euro now, man. Might be a
And
good
then-
thing, I don't know.
Sarah, do you have the same, do you show the same thing with the other two that we had
If
chosen
Ryan goes
in the
down, you'll
original
see that.
It's on the, yeah, they
Yeah,
have it.
that's the 100 and the meats is at the top.
So right now, the default product, Eversource, I think it's like 13.4, 13.5, 13.4 cents, so we're slightly over that at the almost 16, so we're a penny and a half over that price that people could be experiencing on basic service, just so they know. But again, I just want to mention, they can opt out of this program, fee or penalty, and come back, in January if they wanted to.
Right, and this has additional renewable.
That's true.
You know,
That's
so
a
it's
great
not an
point.
apples to apples to Eversource, because they only have 63% renewable.
This product is far more locally renewable.
Which product, the bottom one?
The bottom one's 100%, the next one up is 25% more than is
That
required.
was
but
before, and that's a new thing, or did we look at that last time?
That's the one you
That's the
chose.
one you have.
That's the one that you put
Oh,
in.
good, okay, good, that's good.
And when the new contract begins, or before that, is there another round of mailings to everybody in town explaining what
So
their options are?
There would be a postcard that will go out
Yep.
and say, there's a new contract, whoever the winning supplier is, the term, and what the rates are.
Yeah.
So, and I should explain, if you're in the default product, you'd be moved to whichever default product the town chose. And if they were in the opt-up, if it was the same, we would discuss, we could move them directly across, the same thing on a meats.
Okay.
And this is only the energy generation piece. The transmission piece is still Eversource.
Yes.
right there.
All the top charges that you see on your bill, this is just the supply charge. The numerous, that's the Department of Public Utilities.
They kept the high margin part for themselves.
All right, is there any further discussion? Do we need to vote on giving you
Yeah, I think we have to.
authority?
Or we have to vote for
And then
the,
a range too, I thought I
Is there a
heard.
motion in there?
move
There
to
is some-
authorize the town administrator to accept or reject at his discretion executable pricing for the community choice aggregation contract with a range of, and that's what we have to supply now.
Yep.
We have to supply now?
Well,
Yes,
Well, to give him some
to
guidance.
give them the, yeah.
Although
Best
I don't
deal
know what we're
possible
basing it
range.
on.
Range, we don't know what it's gonna be.
0 cents to
0 to,
You could say I mean, a penny sounds like a lot, but you could say a penny on either side of what's here. Normally we would say half a penny, but just given the market volatility, even if you go a penny up from what's here, you're still below where you are now, so
Why wouldn't we just empower them to do the best deal? Like,
I think that's.
Well,
your
right.
option.
we're not gonna
What-
change the world energy prices.
when you talk about a penny on each side, what time frame are you looking at your volatility? on this?
So you have, if the utility requires a 60-day setup if you're gonna switch suppliers, so this contract is up in January, so we'd have to sign something by the end of October. We're
Yeah.
just trying to give you leeway all the way out, depending on what happens with the market, if you wanna sign something sooner. So we would say, by the end of October, and then this is indicative pricing from your current supplier, we would just say maybe a penny up or down from what you're seeing here, just to give them some leeway depending on what the market does.
And I believe we have a time, I think it's May.
We are getting, that's a good point. This is just from the current supplier. We did put out to the full supply community to get full indicative pricing back on May 30th. So we will have all 4 suppliers pricing for all these products. That's more information for Ryan to look at, and then we would move to executables after that. So not only will we have more information from the supply community, but we'll also know the national, the Eversource rate. They went out today. We should know that next week. You will have that information, so that's a good gauge as well on May 30th. To then decide to go to executable from there, but it gives
So
you
why
some
not
room.
set the range in June? Like, why would we set the range now?
Right.
Yeah, it seems a
Is that
little.
arranged to be determined? Can we do that in
Yeah,
the
range to
motion?
be determined, because I think it's silly.
Yeah.
They're gonna do a good job, they always do, getting us a menu of
Yeah.
choices, and we'll pick from the best choices, right?
Or you could, and you could just end the
I
motion.
mean, if
with
there's a
the
war
contract.
and it goes up 2 cents, what, he can't sign it?
Just, I think we should leave the range off,
Yeah.
honestly.
In the motion.
Yeah.
That's.
Are you comfortable with that, Mr.
No.
Town Administrator?
No?
So I'm not allowed to execute this contract without you. The problem is it has to be executed in a day. So it
Right.
can't be tied to a meeting.
But we don't have to set the range today, you're not gonna execute it tomorrow. You don't even know prices for a month.
There is an opportunity the reason why they're here tonight is we could execute it on June 1st, right? After that round of indicative pricing, all the way up to October. So assuming you're okay taking the risk on a month, what you're saying is okay, but if you want first shot at the apple, it has to be tonight.
And then revise it.
If you don't have another meeting.
You guys not going to have another meeting before
Oh,
June
right.
1st?
So, well, it's on our agenda to have that important dates. We have the one,
All right, so if we
For the
do the
fourth
plus or
Tuesday
minus a
in
penny
May.
now, and then we get new information, we just change the range, we just have a new motion?
Or if you set a max, I could work with that as well. Just, we don't want to pay more, or we definitely want to pay less. There just needs to be some direction.
But you wouldn't, I'm struggling with this, because you wouldn't, let's say CCA, they present us with the today, whatever it is today, the 15 point something, 15.
Yeah, 15,989.
Okay. I mean, okay, I guess you could decide to do that now and do what Mark said and put it appended to the end of the thing. But why would you? We're in, we got time. I don't know why you would need direction between now and when the pricing comes out, because I wouldn't advocate that you make that change at this point.
Unless your crystal ball was such that you
Yeah.
knew what, but nobody
Right,
seems to
so,
know.
I mean,
I did want to do something. Is there anyone in the public, I know there's a member of the FinCom here, or anyone who wants to has a question or any comment? You just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Bart Bernstein, Peter Hans Road, also a member of FinCom.
Would you like to?
I think they.
You can hear, yeah.
Can you hear? I'm just wondering why we would, I understand giving the town administrator an upper limit, but why would we want to give them a lower
Oh,
limit?
yeah. You don't need to. You don't
As
need to.
low as possible.
Right,
It's
right.
good.
Oh,
Lower is better.
absolutely.
But I don't disagree, just, so I don't know about the plus or minus 0.1.
Thank you.
Good point.
Is there anyone online who has a question or a comment? All right, seeing none online, I just thought I'd open that up. Okay.
So I'm going to revise this, then say to move to authorize town administrator to accept or reject at his discretion executable pricing for the community choice aggregation contract with a maximum of 1 cent above what was presented on this indicative pricing list.
does that work?
Is that-
Absolutely, yeah.
Second.
Okay. Any
Does that
further-
work for you? Yeah, so if the working group saw numbers drop dramatically on June 1, we'd like to act immediately and have direction now to do that. But you're right, if the pricing is still up in the air, then we bring it back.
It is, it's still a crapshoot, you see it dropping, you grab it because, and then it can drop some more later, but you just have to, there's a point where you just have to kind of,
That's what I'm trying to.
Generally, option
Yes.
holders don't
Just so I
exercise their
want
options.
people to understand
The option's
that.
about to expire. right?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
putting that out.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we come up with a strike price now and just say, execute at that number.
and do we have to decide the term, or is that something the working group would figure out?
So based on the discussions we had in the past and the discussion we had tonight, I would be inclined to be around the 22 months, the 2 years, unless there was some reason or some advice otherwise that thought was acceptable. But 22 is the target.
Sounds
There
fine.
again, you never know. I mean,
Right.
if the price bottom drops out, you want it to be shorter, right? But if it keeps on, if it's, yeah.
Right.
So this is just sort of the
Best.
nice,
Mid-range.
mid-range.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds political.
And that's a part, part of the, it's a gamble.
It sounds political, but 22 months puts us between the midterms and the next election. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't really want to venture farther than that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I would add, like, the options that you get when you look at changing range from 6 months to 24 months. So individuals can, within the
Well,
22 months, can
Exactly,
make
do
your
what
own.
I was doing, I was going in and out, as I said, because at one point, we missed our target, you know, and.
Start a little business from
Day
France
trader.
where you're just, send us all the optimal.
That's the way to do it.
So I kept my eye on it.
That's good, Kate. All right.
Day trader.
We've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
None opposed. All right.
Do you have anything else?
Maybe there could be a little group in town that keeps, you know,
That does
pushes
that.
out,
Yeah.
you know,
The latest
the
news
latest
on.
news on the
yeah.
electric rates.
I see that on City in the Woods from time to
Because you
time.
forget, like, you don't.
Put your
I'm looking at that now going, like, right after this meeting, I
Thank
gotta
you.
get out of here and sign up for a 6-month.
Gotta arbitrage your energy.
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for everything you've done for our electric bills.
I can be at 11.5 cents for the next 6 months, like down from, why wouldn't I do that?
Right. All right, we're a little ahead of schedule, but I think that's fine. Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund discussion.
Oh, yeah,
Barn burner.
It's an exciting night.
yeah,
That's important though.
Natural care.
Everybody's
Oh, yeah.
leaving, Ryan. Why is that? So exciting.
You're gonna think I'm obsessed with the cemetery, and maybe I am.
It's way more complicated than one would think.
Okay, so the Perpetual Care Fund, this came from Kelly and the finance team discussing, and Kelly's online if you have any questions. We were discussing the Perpetual Care Fund. So the Perpetual Care Fund is paid for when people purchase grave sites. They pay into the Perpetual Care Fund because the town has committed to this trust that ensures that the grounds will be taken care of. So that can be misleading. The operating budget does take care of most of the cemetery maintenance. But this perpetual care is there to supplement it and/or replace it if it was necessary in a budget crisis. So in looking at the perpetual care fund to find ways to pay for capital that was proposed, we found the opposite problem. So I'm going to explain that to you now, and then see what you think. So in 2022, the town purchased, this is the entirety of the perpetual care fund since the year 2000, a backhoe for $114,000, and you'll see other expenses that came out here. So as you know, with trusts, you can only spend the interest and not the capital. So this purchase dipped heavily into the what are they? It's not capital.
Principal.
The principal.
Simple, yeah.
It did not. You
It
said.
did.
It did.
So we broke the rule?
We broke the
Yes.
rule. So, and we broke it by a lot. So we did some math on that.
Did not know, or what? How did we manage to do that?
We haven't uncovered a smoking gun as to why that was done, but it was a backhoe that was purchased using the perpetual care
Okay.
fund, and it put us into the deep negative on this account. So we looked at it and we tried to decide what to do. So first of all, if this came in an audit, they would just say, they would point it out and they'd say you'd have to do something about it. There's no crimes that have committed. We're just trying to follow best financial practice. So the three options that we came up with the finance team are to fix it, and by fixing it, you would need to transfer free cash into this account and make it whole. So instead of buying a backhoe with free cash, you use the perpetual care fund, so you would need to back that free cash in.
Backfill it.
Yes.
Backfill with tobacco?
With the
Like a
backhoe.
mountain of cash, we like, funny.
Yeah.
We'll bring it in, we'll just like push it over to Sandy's
Sorry,
desk.
I just couldn't let that go. It's
The
my
second-
filter circuit.
The second option
porous.
was to leave it alone and allow interest to accrue and for it to,
You've
20 years.
You reduced the principal so far that it's not going to earn
It
any
paid for
interest.
20 years.
Yeah.
so this would
More
sit there
so.
for 20 years.
I don't think that's a very good solution.
It doesn't cost free cash, but it'd probably get lost in 10 years. Someone would forget that that decision was made, right? That was what we talked about as the downside. The other is to say that we messed up and that this is now the new principal level and allow it to accrue interest and just do it correctly from here on in. So draw a line in the sand saying we won't do that again and we will move forward. So the finance committee, Mark's here, he can tell you, how that discussion went, but they did discuss this to make a recommendation for you, and they picked option 1, which was to fix this.
Okay.
So fixing it would mean using some type of funds to fill it, which most likely would be free cash, given the way our finances are structured, and that would require an appropriation at town meeting. So if you were to pick options 2 or 3, you could do that as a select board in conjunction with the finance committee. If you were to pick that free cash option that was recommended by the finance committee, you would have to go to a town meeting. It's too late for this one, so this would be a fall town meeting item.
How much? would be-
Question. So
Or you want to make?
40-something?
Kelly did the math, Kelly and Sandy
100.
did the math in the gap right now without further accrued interest, which would happen between now and another town meeting, is $41,900.
Okay.
And the rationale from the FinCom, though Mark could give it as well, that was that, this was an obligation that people, when they buy their cemetery plots, think they're gonna get this perpetual care, they paid for it, and now we've taken it away from them. And
No, that's
so
not true. We haven't taken anything away from anybody. We just
We,
we're
we,
underfunded.
we used the principle when we shouldn't have used the principle of the fund.
That's not quite the same, Mr. Chair. In other words, if I buy a plot and you use the money for something else, as long as I get perpetual care, okay, it didn't take away my perpetual care. It
It
simply
just
used
took
the
away,
money.
it took away the money, so how are we gonna get the perpetual care unless someone else funds
Have we
it?
done an actuarial on actually how much perpetual care we need? No, right?
Well, we have
This is not
we have an
OPEB
amount
food.
that we pay for that perpetual care. We've set that at $150.
So Let me,
per-
let
per
let me
plot.
ask it a different way. Kelly's on the line. Kelly, if you're there, have we done an actuarial a la OPEB to say we have X plots and it's gonna cost Y over the years and we have, have we done that kind of analysis to determine?
Not that I'm aware of.
What's that? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
What you say is not true. We could do that exercise. I'm not debating we should make it whole, but I don't want the misconception that we took away.
That we're not doing the
Right.
maintenance.
We should do some kind of analysis
Risk.
of what we should have in the fund.
Well, we are doing the maintenance. We're paying for it out of
I know,
town
so
funds.
nobody lost any, I
Out
just
of
want
town
to.
funds. So we're not paying for it out of perpetual care funds,
We're paying for it out of the town funds?
Yeah, so the town is taking care of this, whereas the perpetual care fund was set up to take care of that.
So you-
No, it
but that-
doesn't, we're gonna have to analyze this at another meeting for a different topic.
Okay.
But whether we're selling these grave sites for enough money
Right.
to actually,
Okay,
if you
but you
want the
just
user
brought
to
up yet
pay
a
for
third
it.
point. So point one was we took money that's supposed to be for perpetual care, we bought a piece of equipment. Now, one could argue the piece of equipment is for perpetual care, so maybe that was okay. So that's another thing. Then you're saying, if I understand correctly, that we are not actually using this sinking fund to pay for perpetual care. On a regular basis, we simply put it in the operating budget. You're not saying
I'm
that.
not saying that.
That's
No,
what I thought
I'm
I
just saying that maybe the TA can correct us or Kelly, but we weren't supposed to draw down on the principle of this fund. We're supposed to use the interest to pay for the perpetual care. And
What was the
instead,
balance? length
instead,
of
well,
years
if he
for?
pulls up the table, it used to be like 156,000 or whatever. And we said, oh, there's money there. We didn't, someone said that.
No, I get that, but
And said, okay, we're gonna buy this piece of equipment. But then we drew down a whole capital fund that was saved up
I know, but
to.
what was that? Is it like an endowment where it's not clear to me. I agree that we shouldn't have done it, but, and maybe Mark, you can help, but shouldn't we do like a regular analysis to determine?
There's two different things. There's like what you need to take care of the cemetery.
Yeah,
The perpetual care fund may be completely underfunded to handle it. So that's a different thing. And it must be because we're taking money out of the operating budget. But I believe the contract that's made with the person that buys the gravesite is you pay this amount of money, it will be put into this fund as principal,
okay.
and interest from that fund will be used, I don't know what the words are, but this is my interpretation. Interest from that perpetual care fund will be used to help take care of the cemetery. Doesn't say it's just like any other fund, the principal is supposed to not be touched. That's the agreement that's made when you put money into it.
Does it say that?
Well, that's the way it was presented to us, whether it does or not, I
Does
don't
it say
know.
that?
Yeah.
Well, we won't touch the principal.
We should not have touched the principal, no.
Yeah.
So when, let's just say that we get hundreds of thousands of dollars in principal and way more interest than we need for perpetual care. Like, it just sits there forever?
No, because we spend the interest on it for those pieces
Yeah.
of equipment, and we're just not spending the principal on
But if
it.
you never spend the principal, it's a diode, then it just grows and grows for no purpose, right?
Well, we can do better care with the interest that comes off of it.
Like, we can't
But you're
do
right, the
that,
principal just keeps
that
growing and growing.
analysis thing that did we vote that already? The x-ray thing for the plots and all that? Is that,
Coming up at town
But you,
meeting.
Right.
if you, in
Can
theory,
we
you
use
could do
this for that?
Yeah, in theory, you could do that as part of the perpetual care, but you just can't spend down that principal. You could use the interest and say, oh, we're gonna use the
listen, I'm
interest.
okay fixing it, but I would like us to explore, maybe with council, how we can do like a real analysis and get the principal at the right level and spend the rest of it on stuff. I thought, Ryan's a couch cushion guy. He's always looking for like extra money in these, there's all these little funds, right?
Quarters of
Are
the
we gonna talk to, there's like 50 funds that Kelly just listed.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Like,
Right.
it's stupid. It's stupid. We should have we should be analytical. And I don't think we're being. So it's okay to fix it, but I want us to revisit it like we're like finance people.
I think that's good. I think we need to revisit it based on how much it costs to, perpetual care. Because
Exactly.
we'll find out that,
Maybe we need more.
yeah,
Maybe we don't charge enough.
yeah, that's a good thought.
Can we back charge dead people?
All right.
That'd be
But
popular.
what do we want to do as a select board? We have to vote this.
I think this,
We have to
no
pick one
question.
of the
You
options.
want to
Option.
restore the principle that, as it should be, as if it had never been
Used.
used.
This will have to be at a future
Well, not
town
as if
meeting.
it, no,
I'm just-
only to the extent we overspent. The 40K, not
Recommended.
the
I'd like to understand,
14K.
I'd like to go back and look at
I'm not sure.
why this was done, because I was on FinCom and I have a spreadsheet with a note on it that says backhoe purchased out of cemetery funds, if not so there was a discussion about this, and there was
There was. Were you on it also?
No. All I have is the note that the backhoe was purchased using cemetery funds, and that if cemetery funds weren't used, put it into the LTC plan, the long-term capital
right.
plan. So whether that was done incorrectly, I think,
Probably, but I want to just clarify something, because Kate and I were, you're suggesting we essentially should spend all the interest of the money we spent. We're only clawing back the piece that exceeded the interest, right, the 40K?
Yes, that's what
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I'm
This would
a
be
little
about a year
confused
from
about
now?
where you got the 40K from, because the principal should be 126,350, right?
Where do you see
I mean,
that number?
well,
Oh, up here, up
The
top.
bottom at the total, it says principal, started at 53.2 for
see.
some reason. Nobody died in 2001 and 2002, I don't know. And then I assume those are,
Nobody bought plots. Doesn't mean
nobody
died.
bought, well, whatever.
Some people actually
So-
buy plots ahead of
Okay,
time.
yeah, okay. So I'm assuming that principal column is how much gets put
Should
in
it-
when, and the total of the principal should be 126,350 at this point. Is that correct?
Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly, is that?
Yes, sorry, yes, that, I wanted to make sure she was finished her thought.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. And to speak to your points about the earlier years, there was a former treasurer from, that was in the chair in 2000 that had done a pretty detailed analysis back at that time. So we were able to pull all her historical data to come up to the 53,200. That wasn't the deposits in that year. That was the balance that she identified.
Okay.
And then the other years we went back, Sandy and I went back through, previous cash book transactions, what we could gather from old general ledger transactions to fill in those other holes. 2001, 2002, we could make an estimate, but we didn't have any hard data to fill those figures. But yes, based on all of that combined, the 126,350 was the total.
Okay.
But Ryan, if you scroll down a little bit, I don't know what you can see on your side, but the whole bottom's cut off for me.
Can you enlarge?
So of the 126,000, the amount that's actually in the bank was $84,000
Oh, that's where you got the 41K. Okay.
So we have funding in the account. It was just not classified correctly. So once that correction is made, the principal that the hole that would need to be filled is the 41.9
Okay.
as
so-
of now. Well, March 31st was, we get quarterly statements, so that's when that figure was available for.
And does that add up to the same as, 126,350 minus 147,13?
This
mean,
gives you the
I
126 right
understand.
here.
I understand that, but I'm just wondering, it looks like we're,
I don't know.
The-
I don't know what
okay,
that.
all right, never
So
mind.
Kelly, but
Okay.
in your note, in your memo of March 28th, there seems to be some disagreement of actually how much money is in there. Didn't you list a bunch of different, you cited a whole bunch of numbers that they're not all the same number. Bartholomew, bank account, blah, blah, blah.
So Bartholomew that's the bank, that's the trust account where the funding is held.
Yeah.
So the way when that account was set up, the full balance was deposited into the interest, the expendable. So in total, it was all viewed as interest expendable funds
that's why,
instead of being separated between a principal deposit and an interest deposit.
Mischaracterizing.
So that account just carried that way from when it was originally started. So one of the things that we did was we took the interest that was showing as expendable funds
Yeah.
and moved it over into that principal column on the Bartholomew, the bank statement. So that way it is now tucked away, and any deposits that have started in FY24 and FY25, we've been moving that monthly, quarterly, so that way it's properly reflected in the bank account as
So
well.
fixed it. So,
Yeah.
then below in your note, you have an excerpt of some law, talks about bequest. Is the $150 considered in section 25 a gift or bequest? Is that part of it?
So I'm
Section
sorry, the
25
$150, the
right
deposit that goes into the perpetual care?
Well, the reason I asked the question, so the money that people pay when they purchase a plot, is that considered section 25 money?
So they pay $300. So the way it's set up with the town is that half goes to the perpetual care and half goes to a cemetery sale of lots account, which is more restrictive than the general fund, but less restrictive than the perpetual care account.
So you're just talking about overdrawing the perpetual care side?
Correct. Yep.
Because if I read the text here, the proceeds shall be paid and be appropriated to reimburse for the cost of the land, its care, improvement, and embellishment. So, I mean, again, one could construe that the piece of equipment was purchased for its care and improvement.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
It doesn't
that's true, but you
distinguish
can only
capital and
spend from the
operating expenses.
interest.
Or even the enlarged.
Sorry, Kelly, can you say again?
That's interesting.
You can only spend from the interest, so the income therefrom
I'm not
is
seeing
where
that.
it's
I'm
only
not-
the income earned on the principal balance, not the full balance in the fund.
Okay, but that's not shown in the thing on the screen, the section 25 text, right? That doesn't speak to
Let me see.
principal interest at all, and it doesn't speak, it says proceeds of sales shall be paid into town treasury and be appropriated to reimburse for, and then it lists some things. It neither distinguishes capital to operating expenses nor interest and principal.
Well, I don't think that's what's that.
I can look at it again.
Few here.
It looks like there might be a few words cut off on the corner the way the screenshot printed, but I'd have to pull that up again to get the language.
Okay, I mean, it seems unclear to me, that's all I want to say.
And this section
Okay.
25 is a state, from a state statute, or is this a local?
Accordance.
This is a state.
MC, oh, okay, yeah, it is Mass General Law. So
Pay the
when
income
somebody
therefrom.
purchases a
Upon their order.
cemetery
with their
plot,
approval.
are they signing something
Proceeds of sales,
that
nothing
maybe
to do
has
with
the
proceeds
language
of
where
sales.
people are talking about? Does it, I don't know. Does the,
I've-
what they sign?
That paperwork I haven't seen. Jim Hall or Gretchen could probably weigh in a little heavier on that aspect.
Yeah.
Get that answer?
So, do we need counsel to help us with that section 25 interpretation?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't
probably.
it, I mean, because it frankly, it says both that you, talking about just using the interest, but then it also says the proceeds of it.
Right.
You can phrase, so I think we need to get some,
Yeah.
we need to get some
So I
more
think we
advice.
should table this. We don't need to, we're not deciding for this town meeting anyway, right?
No.
Right,
No.
okay.
But these are good things, and the
Yeah, yeah.
TA or whoever he delegates
You know,
can
We should
track it
figure
down
out
and
Yeah.
figure
clean
this
'em
out.
up. Yeah.
It's a good catch, and we
Yep.
need to just make
Good
sure.
catch, yep.
But I think we're of the opinion, if it is required, we would want to.
I think we'd like clarification on whether it's
What-
required. I'm
Right.
not convinced
First,
it's-
we'll find out if it's required, but generally,
Then we'll fix it.
you know,
And we should, if it is,
Yeah.
we should write.
So as we investigate more of these funds, anticipate these things, so that note from Kelly that in 2000, that treasurer will, I think every 20 years, you need to go through these things and document and make sure. The other part is, this started because, and Travis will probably remember the conversation, I'm like, oh, I found some money for the capital plan.
Yes.
So I brought it to Kelly, I was like, thanks for giving me this list, we can spend this money, and she's like, hold on,
Yeah, right.
and looked into it, so,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it happened, Scott, but I bet it was a conversation like that.
No, I'm sure.
And you need to clarify
Well, no, it
these
sounds like it was misclassified in the Bartholomew.
Or it was, at the time, that was under Tim and different finance director, and it was probably, oh, no, the backhoe is acceptable use under perpetual care, whatever. I mean.
And
it
maybe
wasn't-
that's right, by the way.
Well, yeah, I have no, but it wasn't, it was discussed, and the understanding at the time from a FinCom standpoint was it was being
You were
appropriate.
not on FinCom in 2002.
I was.
Was it? what-
2020, this is
I
2021.
mean one. Oh,
No, I have a note on this particular item in
I
the
thought it was
long-term caps thing.
2002 or so. Okay.
Yeah.
got it, yeah.
But it was discussed, and it was, oh, we can use cemetery, I don't think we went and read the legal language around the cemetery fund, but we should just confirm.
Well, generally, I mean, I'd say, to take it up one level, right, I'm all in favor of wire brushing all those little pots of
Yeah.
money, and anything we can legally redeploy and simplify, we should definitely.
Well, and I'd like to just commend Kelly and Ryan and the whole finance team, because we're,
Sandy.
yeah, and Sandy, because we're finding a lot of these things that
Yes.
have been neglected or misplaced or misinterpreted, and there's going to be more cleanup work that has to happen. So thank you for doing all the due diligence on this.
Okay.
As long as it's clear that I have nothing to do with it.
Of course.
it's just the cleanup.
I just spend it, try to spend it.
All right, well, let's move on then to the next item, which is the Carolyn Hill Scholarship discussion,
speaking
which
of-
is,
Okay, so, just, this is another one that it may or may not want to decide it tonight, but it's good for you to understand, and here's why. So, the scholarship is a known thing in town, and the main reason why we came at the scholarship question was because your scholarship committee is essentially disbanded. There's no one left that has volunteered to do the scholarship. And all of that institutional knowledge went with them. So we've been trying to draw it out, but sometimes when a volunteer leaves, they no longer want to volunteer. So if you were to continue that scholarship, the select board either needs to work, and the staff needs to work hard to recruit new people, or you become the scholarship committee, which led us to the question of what is the scholarship and where does it come from?
Right.
So if you're looking, I'll just show you so you're not. Under the Scholarship Advisory Committee, which I was looking through old documents today and has been around for a long time, it says the Carolyn E. Hill Scholarships were established in memory of a longtime resident who died in 1967 at the age of 93. So it doesn't say that it would be a scholarship to Carlisle students. It says that it would be given to residents in need.
Yeah, which is interesting.
So it's called,
This specifically says on our website.
and
It's for
we're not saying this
education.
is right or wrong, we're just saying we're looking at the language to try and make sure. So if you look at the documents that we sent you, there are many scholarship accounts with many levels of principal, and the finance team has said, we think it was named this, and the Carolyn Hill account was used primarily because of its balance. It was just the biggest one.
Yeah.
So were all of these being aggregated into, or have some of these just not been utilized?
So that's what we wanted to know.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that if that was being done, that we rechecked in and made sure that that was the intention, because
Yep.
like we think with the perpetual care fund, you can't touch the principal on these, you can only spend the interest.
Only some, right? Some are silent, right? Like the Latham one's pretty clear, you can only use the interest, but the Alvin Titus doesn't say that. Right.
So there's a few things to unpack.
One of them's in pounds.
Yeah, saw this.
The Simon Blood one is in pounds. Only pounds can.
Some of these have existed for a while, as you can tell by the language. So
Pieces of 8.
So our questions, besides what questions do you have, are, do you want to continue a scholarship? And if so, who's going to do it? And then how to properly allocate the funds. And not to complicate it further, but you also have a budget issue with your rental assistance program that you provide through the Council on Aging that's come up a couple times in the budget process. So it was ARPA funded, and now it's being requested of CPA funds. Eventually, that's going to either come into the operating budget, or you might consider funds like something like this. And then also, we had a request from a student who's in grad school who asked if these scholarships are still available, and everything is silent on whether or not that is allowed. And of course, in all of this, we assume that
By that, you mean grad school?
Correct. We assume that you would be in favor of at least discussing it or talking about it, but we don't know. We don't have direction, so.
And there are no documents that we've been able to find beyond what this says that sort of established the fund in the first place?
This is a summary of it.
Besides the summaries and the source documents we have, it looks like the scholarship program was created, and we're gonna dig deeper into the select board votes on that, but there is no source document says that this will be done this way. At some point,
Yeah.
a select board said, here's how we're gonna do it.
So the fact that some are named school fund, some scholarship fund, some trust fund, is just the way whoever made the donation described it? Yeah.
It's just for loans.
But I wasn't sure of your answer to the question, I think that David asked. Have all these been put in one pot, even though we can separate them out? And that's what, when we did have a scholarship committee, they were drawing on any of the funds that were allowed to be drawn on for the purposes of offering scholarships? You know, educational scholarships?
I can answer that, Barney.
Yeah.
No, it would have been, the select board would have had to have voted specific to which trust fund it would come out of.
Okay.
They are not pooled, they are held separately, they are in separate accounts in Bartholomew. Well,
Okay.
they're all in Bartholomew, but they're itemized.
Okay.
And in the general ledger, the same. They're all individually tracked.
Yeah.
Which is good. So,
Yeah.
but I think we have to constitute some kind of committee, but I would prefer that the charge of that committee not be limited to scholarship funds, because a fair number of them, Carolyn Hill and others, talk about the needy, and we certainly have
Exactly.
that. So
Yeah.
Right.
if we're gonna do this, let's look at
Right.
the whole mishmash, and let's figure out,
Yeah.
and I don't know whether, again, it's gonna require some parsing of legal documents, but, for example, the guy with $200 in the fund, I mean, if the documents allow, maybe you wanna spend that down and close that fund, not have 18 little.
Or not spend it, but aggregate it with another one of them
Aggregate, yeah,
that's similar.
exactly, but something like that, yeah.
How do we administratively move this forward? I mean, is this something for, someday we have an intern at the town and they go through all these documents? Is it an administrative thing, or is it a committee,
Well, it's two parts, right?
that would do it?
You gotta first establish, as you say, what's legally permissible, like we just talked about with cemetery.
Right.
That may not be an intern's job. And then, yeah, I think we should have some process, right?
Well, I was just talking about culling all this data, like
Yeah,
you gotta have someone go through it,
Well,
say,
that's right.
this
Maybe
is.
maybe a law student, yeah. Somebody's in law school, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm also curious, when you do a scholarship thing, if you have a committee and it's all open meeting law, is that awkward when you're reviewing
That's a good
potential
question.
scholarships and voting for scholarships to I mean, do most
What
towns
is
do
the-
this in
so
a
That's
closed?
a good point. So the CEF, Carlisle Education Fund, I think is private, right?
It's private.
Like Sarah Wilson was like extremely tight-lipped about that until they announced. So I presume they operate differently, right? They have the right to vet whatever they vet, and then they announce. But we can't do that with these funds.
I mean, you could have a student
Well, I
and you're
wonder if you could-
rejecting, they're saying, well, their grades aren't good enough for this, guy or something, and it becomes a
So
little.
these are public funds, I guess. by the fact that they were donated to the town, and then,
Yeah.
The fact that we have them makes them public.
and then therefore the deliberation about their use is a public thing.
And what we used to do, I remember this early on, we used to, publicize that we had this money available and invite students, from the high school or students from Carlisle going to college to submit their letter of interest. And I think there was even an application form, because at one point, way back, I was part of a group that, I'm not quite sure how we were pulled together. It wasn't an ongoing, permanent group, but we were asked to review the applications and recommend. We had
But
a
it may
certain
not have
amount of
been
money.
public.
Pardon?
Did it follow open meeting law? And so,
No.
I mean, that's the,
No.
Could a daytime government group vet the applications and make recommendations to us or somebody?
Or could
The
you do
ones they
it kind
wanna
of the
put
way
forward?
that Aubrey does the hiring, which is she pulls together a screening committee, and that's not open, doesn't follow
Can you have a
open meeting
standing
law.
screening committee?
Pardon?
You cannot.
I think we first need to get the information, and then
Yeah.
we can revisit this and figure out what's the best way to, but I was asking, what's the best way to get the information together?
probably need an estate lawyer or somebody with experience with these types of things to just go through each one and just list out the requirements and the amounts and what's permissible. Someone that knows, like you said, an intern, or someone with knowledge of.
Well, Kelly, I didn't quite follow your answer. Is there some kind of document with each
The funds?
fund, to your knowledge?
Yes, so Sandy has pulled together files upon files from all of these trust documents. We've started digitizing them and consolidating them. So she's started putting together a working document of, who the trust was from, how much was given, what portion can be spent, who has the legal authority to spend it, so whether it's select board, school committee, library trustees, what have you, because the trust funds go beyond what you're seeing tonight. So she's already done a lot of that legwork, but we're at a point where we do have consolidated all of the actual paperwork behind them.
Is the one in pounds on parchment?
There's a lot of handwritten paperwork. Old paperwork that's
Is there any provision?
it's hanging in.
Is there any provision in the town for like paid internships? Like, do we have any money that we could pay interns over the summer to do stuff? No. Okay.
I mean, yes, but no.
I mean, if we were to, now's the time where kids are looking for things to get somebody who wants to maybe help out and do that, pay them a little.
Yeah, college student or someone who's, interested in
the
this
law?
type of thing.
Right, because it sounds like a lot of work's been done, so maybe they could do it as a project and then report out at the end of the summer.
Why don't we just turn it over to the town administrator to,
I'm good with that.
continue?
So the short-term problem that doesn't have to be decided tonight is that I just want to make sure there isn't a community or select board expectation that scholarships would be given out this year.
Yeah.
And if so, we need to, the select board needs to focus on it this summer, and then the long-term thing will be for the following year.
How many have
And
we
the,
been giving out?
And this one should be, this Freddie and Ruth Robbins one is supposed to be administered by the Carlisle School Committee, so we're gonna have to get them involved as well, I would say.
Sure.
I mean, it might be that they might want to delegate that authority, but
Sure, if we
they
have a
need to be
committee.
aware of it, and it's one of the ones with the biggest thing, because it obviously has been,
Accumulating those.
accumulating, and,
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot to this too. The other third component, someone said, maybe it was Ryan, about,
And that's the one that's loans, excuse me, right?
Yeah, that's the one
That's
that's
one that are
like,
loans.
how do we as a town decide to invest this? Because it looks like a lot of this has been uninvested or,
Or-
marginally.
well, I know,
No, Bartholomew, I think it's being invested.
and Caroline Hill must be
Okay,
invested.
well, the one
as
that's
well.
in pounds is worth $4,300, and if it was old enough to be in pounds, it should be worth a little bit more than that.
Well, but it only, don't, yeah. Yeah, yes.
Okay, This is a fun topic.
Travis, some of the history that may not be shown in the summary too is that some of these funds may have been spent at some point in time.
Okay.
So that's just the balance as of a point in time. So I guess take some of it with a grain of salt that there may be more history than what's shown.
Sure. It's just like the backhoe. People have spent it
100
along.
pounds be kept forever.
Yeah.
Lisa said there's-
All right. Well, Brian, do you have enough direction
100 pounds
from
of
this
real money.
conversation to, get more information? I think we would like to talk about it again and figure out then the next step as to how we administer it and if we delegate that to a committee or however it is.
We do have this one letter from Isabel Parker, who had received the scholarship before, right? And now she's going to get a graduate degree and wondering about whether it could be considered. I don't know whether we just have to wait on that.
We don't have a process, we don't have,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think unfortunately,
Just like an RFP, you can't just give it to the first
Person that reaches out,
asked.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
She's already gotten some anyway, it sounds like.
Okay. I think we've exhausted that. So let's move on to the next topic, which is
still have to help.
annual town meeting.
I know it's the balloon
The
matter.
discussion of the annual town meeting warrant articles to include potential votes. Are there any that we have not voted on, Mr. Town Administrator? I think we're in pretty good shape.
Did we,
We are. We haven't discussed the elevators
Because we didn't have a number.
and the amenities building. You want to start?
Sure, I'll start with the amenities building. So what we have been talking about up till now, which you all probably followed, is that out of the Carlisle CPA accounts, we would designate $450,000 for Carlisle's share of this. We heard just today from Brian Watterson, who's on the regional school committee and is the kind of lead for Carlisle on the building project, that Gale Associates, which is the firm that's doing the design, so they've finalized the design as of, well, they've provided the final designs to the committee, and the estimate is continuing to be revised, but Brian is saying that it's not going to go up. It's already been reduced, and it may change and be a little bit lower, but the number that Brian is saying he has put into his slideshow, which he's showing on Sunday, is, sorry, let me go find that part of this. It was, rather than $450,000, it is, where was that number? It's not in this, let me see if I can find it.
The suspense is killing me, though.
I know. Well, it's not hugely, it's not, yeah, it's
not
not a lot
100,000.
less. Hold on a second, let me,
432,325.
yeah, so it's down by 18,000.
We'll take every
But that's
dollar.
good, yeah. And so that's the number that we're going to, is the handbook already printed, Ryan?
The motion, no.
The motions handbook? So that's the number then that'll go into the motions handbook, and that's what Brian will use on Sunday.
Okay.
And that's what we will, the CPA part of the motions handbook will reflect the new number as well. And and we're using the formula from this year to determine Carlisle's share, based on the school formula. And they vote, the Concord doesn't vote until June.
And are they using CPA funds as well?
No.
Because they
No,
missed
the
debt-
CPA would not allow them to
Their
be
CPA.
considered, their CPA wouldn't allow them to be considered because they didn't get their information in on time, their application.
Yes, I heard it was a day late.
I have a question for you. It's a process question.
Yes.
If at town meeting, the town meeting votes in favor of the amenities building and it passes, and then the town of Concord decides it does not pass that, what happens to those funds? Are they perpetually allocated, or is
No.
that just goes right back because that
Into our
project is?
yeah,
So
that
it's not
project
like
is
if
not-
they came back next year and said, oh, we really are going to use our Concord says, we'll use our CPA funds, they don't automatically, we have to
They'd have to
revote.
reapply,
Okay.
yeah.
It's not a 3-year grant, and they have 3 years to spend it?
That's what I'm asking.
Well,
Yeah.
because,
That's in the
be-
cost of change.
because this is a two-town project, I've forgotten what we called that agreement we signed with them, but
Intermunicipal.
intermunicipal agreement, we've checked this out with our
Yeah,
town
yeah, I'm
council.
sure, yeah.
The CPA funds in Carlisle can only, are not designated for this project, over the next 3 years if Carlisle votes it down, or
Yeah,
if Concord votes it down, right? So both towns have to approve it.
I understand,
if
but
both
I guess
towns-
I guess, since it's a reimbursement thing, it's not
Yes.
a grant where you actually give them that.
The money ahead of time,
ahead
right.
of time.
Yes.
It seems to me that they should have and normally they are given a span of time in which to get the project done. Even if Concord were to only do it, agree to it the next year, and then they started the project, I don't see why those funds couldn't be held for them until they spend it but then they have to spend it by the end of that, whatever the end of the thing is, so I guess
Well,
I'm
we would-
surprised.
Yeah, well, I think that,
So Barney, I think that's right. So if the CPA funds can only be used if the scope of the project was the way the town voted it. So if Concord voted it down in this town meeting, but then had a special town meeting to fund their side of it, I think our vote would still be binding. As long as the project didn't change. So they could take many attempts at funding it.
but that means that we've encumbered $432,000.
For how long?
And we're taking it out of the undesignated fund because we don't have enough in the recreation fund. A lot of that's coming out of undesignated, but so that means let's say it took them 3 years to finally get the vote of approval.
So you don't have to keep it for 3 years, you could rescind it at the fall.
I thought
Because
that,
most of our agreements actually say 2 years.
I thought the regional school committee agreement gives each town a blocking right on capital projects. So if one town blocks, I think it dies.
Well,
guess
but
we'd
that's
have to look into
that's-
this.
That's a separate issue from how CPA
Right.
grants and agreements are written.
Well, you could write that-
And
I guess you could write a
It could be that you might
contingent
want to
on-
do it
Why don't you write a contingent on Concord approving?
David, you're right. So if Concord said no and we're never doing it, then it does die.
No, when they say no in a town meeting, they don't have to say never, it dies that day. That bill died that day, they said no.
Right, but if they called a special town meeting 45 days later and said, we want to vote it again, then it would,
But
it's unlikely.
they also, the way their CPA works, they don't have another funding cycle within 45 days.
Well, I'm saying a special
I
tax.
mean, could we write our motion such that the funding is approved contingent on Concord passing theirs, and just leave it at that, and let them do it?
So you mean Concord passing it that day,
No, on their town meeting.
Right,
At
they gotta
their
do the
town
debt
meeting.
but
exclusion.
Not
In the next
6
6
months from
months.
now.
Let them
right?
belly up and vote it.
They gotta do the debt exclusion too.
If it
Well,
votes to
because in
pass, we don't
their-
care how they pay for it.
Right,
Well, I mean, you could pass a town meeting and then fail at the debt
on the
exclusion.
ballot.
Then write it so it has to pass at the ballot box. I mean, I
What a
think this is a weird situation for us, because we usually know the landscape the day we go to
Right.
town meeting. So they've already had their vote, but I would write it contingent on it passing,
Approval by end of
approval
June.
by,
By the end of the June
Yeah,
30th,
right,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, so I guess we
And
could,
that should probably be part of the motion. The language of the agreement has to be included in the motion, I believe, right, or no?
the language of the motion no, the grant agreement, it says, and Kelly, you can chime in if you're still on the call, but they say, the list the town meeting and the date when it was approved, when it was, and then the grant agreement says, it's kind of a boilerplate language that includes some of the information from the application, but I don't believe, Kelly, are you still there? Yeah, I see your name up there.
Yeah, I'm here. I know it references, like you say, the article in the town meeting when it was voted. I don't know that it has the detailed language from the motion.
Right in the grant
It
agreement.
elaborates on the project in some, section of it, the parameters of the project, but I don't know if it's a word for word.
Yeah, what's in the motions handbook right now is, right, Brian's moving the motion to appropriate it out of the CPA funds, and then, and it would be appropriate, and it'd be expended by the CC, the Carlisle Regional High School. And any portion of the sums not expended by June 30, 2027. So
Yeah.
it's a 2-year grant agreement shall be returned to the Carlisle Open Space and Recreation Reserve Fund. So would we put a clause in, why would we put a clause in there depending on whether it passes?
Just so you don't have to hold the money for the next 3 years. Like to your
2
point.
years.
Yeah,
Just, it's a now thing.
right.
I think it's gonna pass, so I think it'll be a non-issue, but it's probably prudent to do that, so you don't have to just keep it. It's the couch cushion problem, right?
Couch cushions. Yeah, I mean, maybe a contingency in the grant agreement, because the motion references the grant agreement,
It's a
that
now or a
it's,
whole motion?
contingent on the terms in the grant agreement. Maybe that would be the
Yeah.
place to put it.
Maybe we'll have to explore this a little bit in the next 10 hours.
Takes 10 minutes.
Right.
We're gonna write this for Sunday. So there's two issues here. So normally you extend the use of the funds because the project's gonna take 2 years. So just a clarifying question. So if Carlisle passed it and said, we're willing to spend up to $432,000, and Concord fails, but someone from Concord says, I'll pay the rest, would Carlisle not agree to, does it have to be that specific vote, or is there a certain time frame you're trying to restrict it to?
I like the June 30.
Yeah, I think the time frame is what is appropriate, because we don't care how they fund it.
Right.
And but if this thing delays 12 months or whatever, we're into the next cycle of CPC money, and we say, oh, well, we have other uses that we may deem at that point in time more appropriate or better for Carlisle, for the committee deciding that, we may want that flexibility.
So how long do you want to keep it available for Concord to figure themselves out?
June 30.
Right away.
Well, you mean once their ballot election?
Or the time frame that would work with the next cycle.
Well, the next cycle could be as early as this fall.
That's what I was trying not
We're a
to,
little different at
So
Eden.
maybe August 30. Give them some.
trying not to confuse you, but the hypothetical could be, it fails at the ballot box, and then their CPC does decide to open a round,
Right.
fund the rest of it by the fall. I don't.
Right, or by their next spring, which is typically when they put forward things they're recommending in Concord
that's a
County.
whole
So
new-
maybe we give them a
That's
year.
a new
we can
cycle.
approve it at next
That's a
time.
new cycle.
That's fine.
I was asked this question only because of the discussion we're having.
Right.
And I just
Yeah.
didn't think it was appropriate to have it go.
We shouldn't hang it
in
in.
perpetuity.
Let
or
them
2
fish or
years.
cut bait this
Exactly.
summer, and then if they
But I'm
wanna
willing
re-up
to
it,
give
we
them
re-up it.
some leeway with, is Brian's scenario, if someone came out of the woodwork and said, I really want to see this project being done, and they were able to cobble together the money. Doesn't matter to me, but because our voters in town here decided they wanted this at this particular time. But at some point in time, we are going to have other needs and say, yeah, we want to do something else.
Yeah, I will just say for, being transparent about our CPA funds, we have several grant agreements on the books for projects here in Carlisle that have not been spent, and some of them haven't even been initiated, and they've had, whoever the applicant is has come to us to extend the term, and we have been making those extensions, but I'm just saying, we have already money set aside for a number of grants that are, Carlisle specific.
So
Okay.
which date? would
Time
you like?
period, what date? We've heard different things. Scott, I think, said August.
August 30th?
I'm okay
August
with that.
30th?
Yeah, I think that's fine because
Time?
we wouldn't start a new cycle for the fall meeting
Okay.
until,
So August 30th. The board has concluded August 30th.
So it
I
shall
so
be
declare.
written.
I
Now,
so declare.
I will say, though, you actually have to make that recommendation to the CPC. So
Right.
I will follow through on that, and we might have to,
You have
what's today?
time between now
Tuesday.
and GM?
We may have to, right, we'll have to call a quick.
You know what you
Post a
need to
meeting.
do is post a meeting
Right, on
for
Sunday,
Sunday.
yeah.
And do that. You can do
Right.
that tomorrow, and that'll be give you enough time.
Right. Well, we can't count Saturday, Sunday, but
Is
tomorrow
posting,
gets
yeah,
us.
that's a good question.
Tomorrow
Post-
gets, but we're good, we
Tomorrow's
could have it
Wednesday.
Friday, yeah, it's
Wednesday's
Friday,
Thursday,
Friday, if we
Friday,
wanted to do it
yeah.
Friday, we
But
could do
you
it
gotta
Friday.
do
Ryan,
it.
are there any other questions on
tomorrow.
that topic that you need?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Sure.
Is there anything else relative to, you said elevators, we haven't
Yes.
gotten to that, and
Yeah.
we're
No.
running behind schedule here, so.
No, we're
Oh,
good.
no, we're not.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
You're right, you're right.
This is what we had to do. So the screen is showing the fancy electronic bids we received for the elevator. So this was estimated at 1 million originally, then 1.1, and you'll see that 3 of the 4 bids came in under $1 million.
Are we allowed to use any of those, or do we have to go with the high? Like, forget the procurement process.
We have to go with the
We have to
lowest.
spend $2 million.
So so now we need a number for the article at town meeting. The finance committee agreed to add a 12% contingency
Yeah.
to the second lowest number, just in case there's some shenanigans with the first. So that would be $1,039,608.
That's the 928 times 1.12?
Yep.
And are you in the, I should know this, but is there any companion vetting of the lowest firm, you have to pick the lowest, right? But do you also have to do a vetting job of the reputation of that?
So right now, Lero Hill, who's our architect, is doing the reference checks.
So if they see something in the lowest that they don't like, a material defect in that company, they have the authority to go to the next guy?
Yeah, responsive and responsible. So if a firm is deemed not responsible to our standard, then we can throw out that bid.
Okay, got it. Got it, good.
Meaning they don't know how to do elevators or something. But all of the people who submitted bids are DCAM certified by the state for elevator installation, and this wasn't one you could just wing.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Okay, sounds
So
good.
the amount is $1,039,609.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Great.
Is that, okay, do we need a vote?
Well, do we support or not?
Yeah, we
That's
haven't-
a-
I support it, but I'm
We
just saying.
didn't already support the
formally.
elevator?
So you didn't support this specific number. So
Yeah, so we
as
should
long
have-
as your recommendation remains, it's cleaner to vote it, but
Well, let's vote it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the amount is $1,039,609. That's, you can check my math, though. That's
That's the same
12%.
thing.
Oh, you got it, okay.
So moved.
That's Article, whatever.
Article 4.
Okay, so it's moved by Kate. Is there a second?
Second.
Scott got that one?
Good.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. Okay. Review of the motions book.
So we're putting out a motions book.
I thought it was fantastic. Well, it got a little slow toward the end.
Slow motion.
It certainly does. I also have I have 80% of the presentations, but we're getting there. There's a lot.
You mean the screen presentations, or what?
Yes. Yep. And the dry run is on Friday, so there's a lot of town meeting prep going on, but we feel like the town meeting is in good shape.
The dry run is for whom?
Any presenters?
Presenters.
Oh,
I thought they were
what
next
time is,
Thursday.
It might be Thursday.
Thursday.
15th
What,
is
Thursday,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
what time is it? I don't think I got that.
Well,
Are you
you're gonna be
presenting?
Oh, the candidates' night, that's why. I
But
told
after
Wayne I couldn't do
After
that,
that, you
right.
could stop by if you wanted to.
Yeah. And,
Stop by the auditorium.
right,
Are you presenting, Bernie?
just a little piece of the CPA, but Mark is,
Okay, Mark, yeah, all right.
And no, Adam Cotton, the vice chair of RecCom, is the one that's actually, and he couldn't make it Thursday night either. So he did his run through, actually. He's doing it right now with Wayne.
Okay.
Good.
So
Wayne's pretty buttoned down on that.
I'll try, I mean, I can try to come by, but, okay.
So
Right.
just
That's why.
Just reminding the board and looking for any feedback on the process, but the poster session, we have at least 8 committed article folks to come do posters. The food truck and all that stuff is being handled by the town meeting study committee, which is great. That's helpful to staff.
Nice.
The childcare has gone out, we've seen, that's also being handled by the TMSC. I will be there for the poster session to alleviate any issues. We talked with the new town clerk, it's her first town meeting. She's gonna be handling the reception and the checking folks in, and then the presentations, et cetera, that are starting. And then the motions book is going to include the finance committee letter, some introductory information from Wayne, all of the motions, and then in memoriam and a town retiree of staff and a thank you for volunteers. So it'll be a comprehensive book. We're printing 250. Does that sound like the right number to you?
That'd be great.
Hopefully.
Probably
We're going to have
75 will be
a
enough.
much bigger turnout. Come on. We are.
Okay.
We are.
What time is the poster
I
session?
have to say,
I'm happy.
I think
12, right? Poster session.
a couple of the articles, particularly the ones
We're gonna
that
bring 'em
have
out.
high opposer, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna bring them out.
Are gonna bring
So it's a
people.
skewed,
Right.
it's a skewed data set.
Yes, yeah.
But we are gonna do another, we're gonna do another snap poll at the end. People have a QR code, so
That
we're
would be
gonna try to
great.
gather some data. We're also, Nancy Pierce has been really driving this, is going to do a poll of boards and committees. So did this work better? Did you get more information out? I wanna say, I think Aubrey's been doing a fantastic job.
On the,
And
yeah,
Ryan as
publicity,
well,
yeah.
getting
Yeah.
article of the day out, getting all those little snippets out, so, I mean, people who are interested have ample ways of getting information, so, let's hope.
I even hand-delivered a warrant to someone today, so.
You did?
I was yelled at. I didn't even make it to the door before I started getting yelled at. In a nice way. They wanted more services. Okay, so I just want to go through each article quickly, not like summarize, but just to say, so the elevator number is now final. Library cores is final. The whole consent agenda is going to be one vote, so that should be pretty quick. The only questions that we've gotten on any of the consent agenda items was the prudent investor rule, and I think it's a coin flip that gets pulled, because people here know how to invest, so they're interested in that. So then we're doing the police station renovation project. This number was finalized by you and also recommended by the FinCom, so that number is final. I am going to change this 750 to make it, I'm going to change that language, but that's not a you problem. Fire station renovation, remind me, Travis, the presentation is being done by,
Me and the chief, the fire chief is
Okay.
going to lead it.
and
probably.
you have the presentation?
Yes, the fire chief actually has it right now.
So you'll change where it says David Modell. I mean, all these people that,
No, that's
Are
just
named?
who's making
That's
the
just the
motion.
mover.
And
Oh,
Dave is not
oh.
gonna do anything either because Wayne will say
He's
moved
gonna-
by, yeah.
okay, okay.
We're cutting down on some of the
Yeah,
reading,
so why
too.
would we even have the name in there, but
It's just-
whatever.
It's just for the minutes.
It's for-
Oh, well, okay.
A physical person has to move these.
They do, but they don't have to say it.
They don't have to say it,
Yeah, you
but
should
we
put
have
me
to.
on the early articles, by the way, in
Why,
case
you're
I'm
gonna
not there
leave
for
already?
You're leaving on Sunday?
What?
She's already out
in
there.
case it's a two-night thing. I won't be there on the 19th.
It's not
Or
gonna
whenever
be.
the second
Oh,
one
no,
would be.
it's not gonna be a two-night thing.
Okay, well,
Say it, Barney.
No, yeah.
All right, so the CR is going to be presented by Madeline Blake, I believe. I'm going to confirm that, and that is complete. Green Cemetery is going to be presented by Gordon. He's going to do a good job with that. CPC recommendations. We've had the most chatter about this in a good way, because all of the numbers and everything. The presentation, the actual physical presentation is one with all of it, or are we coming in piecemeal?
It's one,
The only-
except for the amenities building.
Which I
They
have.
have their own separate thing, but no, the one on all the other projects and the funding is all one continuous slideshow.
And you're quarterbacking that?
And what does that mean?
That means you're not quarterbacking it.
I mean, am I
you're
sitting
gonna
at
get
the
sacked by,
laptop and moving
a
it
left
from
tackle.
slide to slide, or what do you
Defensive
mean?
Are
end.
you gathering it and sending it to me?
Yes, yeah, it's all together. There are just a few little things that have to be
All I need.
corrected.
Okay, so those are good. This is being edited by council, so ignore any of the, it's
Yeah.
been seen by 30 people. I think it's been pretty good. Okay. TA
Can I
bylaw.
just ask a question on the TA bylaw? I didn't see it in any of the back and forth emails. That section 3 at the end of it that says this will become effective upon passage. And I kept asking Tom Harrington, did that mean, doesn't mean passage of at our town meeting. It means it has to go to the legislature first, right, and come back?
My understanding of it, and we'll make sure he answers you, is that it becomes town bylaw, and anything that doesn't supersede Mass General Law would go into effect.
Immediately.
But you would need the legislature to change the law in order for anything.
Right, because this would be superseding the current law.
Well, some parts of it don't though, right?
Right.
So that would probably go into effect. It sounds like.
Yes.
The components that are outside
Right.
wouldn't be in effect.
Because somebody may ask that question, so maybe, but Tom is going to be there. We're going to have legal counsel at the meeting, right? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And I've been asked how this would be implemented on my end, and I would say the way that I've approached anything here is to discuss with everybody involved how to implement it in a reasonable way and time frame so that you're respecting the tradition and history of the town while also transitioning to best practice. So this isn't like if this was past day one, this is how it is. It's gonna be
Right.
it's gonna be
Rogue TA.
so my role here would be to transition the town to this, not to immediately implement it. That's how I take it, unless the select board directs me otherwise. Community consultant, the planning board will be presenting this, and we did change that name. The MBTA communities, this is petition, folks have a whole presentation and everything ready to go. ADU, final from the planning board yesterday, so this is ready to go. No change to the actual bylaw.
We're into 26. To Kate's point, do we really, if she's not there for some reason, is that okay?
So the actual motion is the one that's red, so it doesn't matter that, we just
Okay.
changed the name.
All right. All right.
This is just so that people can follow along. And the reason why I think the town has printed motions, because they change from the warrant, and people have a question when that happens, so it's just easier to follow along. Then the last one is, so there was a lot of questions about this, and I just want you to understand them. So the Board of Health is actually entering us into a regional agreement with East Middlesex Mosquito Control Program. So the motion language is gonna look different than this. It's gonna say that we're entering into that agreement with this funding, et cetera. There's a lot of back and forth about it that happened with council. It accomplishes the same thing they presented, and I don't think that it's changed. It's just the motion language has changed, so I just wanted you to know that. And the summary, which explains that. But it's the same thing. And then we have staff retirees and the in memoriam. Any remaining questions from the board on any of that? Or town meeting?
1 o'clock start.
Yeah, okay.
Poster session is supposed to start at noon, right?
I think so. Gotta get with Gretchen, and I think we went over all that with Ashley and Gretchen. I think food trucks are setting up at 11. People can arrive then. And I think, noon, it might be 11:30 for poster session.
Yeah,
Will somebody send out a confirmation on that?
we should, yeah.
Okay. And then, what time is the select board?
Do we have a meeting
Pre-meeting.
posted? Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we usually do just for whatever comes up.
in case
you know.
there's something last
Yeah.
Are we
minute,
all
yeah.
going to be there for the posters milling about, or not? I'm sure we would. I thought.
Yeah, we'd be there anyway. I mean, I think,
11:30.
personally, I think we
Post
should
for
we
11:30?
probably meet at 11. I mean, I want to get there early enough to make sure
11?
things, no,
11:30.
11:30 should be fine
For our meeting.
for our meeting. I may get there early just to make sure things are running.
Get us all
Not that I can
food.
do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to get a sandwich.
David's buying.
You can start at 11, I think. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What time is the food truck there?
I think it sets up at 11.
All right. Good. All right. That's a wrap on that, unless you have anything else.
Oh, we're in,
Final
it's a
stretch.
lot, but we're in good shape.
No, thank you. It has been a lot, and I'm really impressed with not only the social media, but the town website, having all the stuff there.
Yeah,
It's really,
it's very good.
it's very handy, you know.
Yeah. No, I think we've learned a lot about things we can do, regardless of days and food trucks and things. I think that's the fun part, but I think I'm anticipating that the meeting itself, running it more efficiently, and the fact that people have had access to a lot more information, I'm optimistic that will make a richer
Yeah.
experience.
Good. All right, then we'll move on to the Fire Station Renovation Design Committee. So
Got all set?
we're all set, we're done?
We're all ready to go? Good.
All right, so I'll remind the board, this is on here because at the end of your last meeting, you wanted to hustle with this process.
Yes.
So if you are to get a jump start in June, or whatever the next meeting is, which we also need to discuss, then we would need to start advertising for a committee. That would likely need some type of description of what the committee is. And then I think it would be helpful to send comments from tonight to the OPM and the designer about what it is that you're looking for in terms of project management and outreach, so that they can come back with a proposal and a plan that then you can vet. So my worry would be if you said, what would be your outreach proposal without some goals and some outline for them, that they might bring you something that doesn't match your expectations. So just a little bit of feeding them information would I think would help speed this up. So that was what I was suggesting this time be used for.
A lot of silence around here.
I have thoughts.
Yeah, go for
No, I
it.
mean, in reviewing, I think, our last discussion and a lot of the prior discussions and feedback from the community, I mean, it seems like there's agreement around the objectives of certainly health and safety, maintaining call fire department, and dealing with some of the challenges around recruiting call fire people, space needs, whatever. The question that hasn't been answered for us, and I know has also been raised, that we thought would be answered, was really around this issue of equipment, right? And we're talking ladder trucks, tanker trucks, the things that may not be mandatory, but may be appropriate for Carlisle or not. To me, the big unanswered questions lie in the space of validating and finalizing the equipment that we want the fire, and I'm oversimplifying, but the equipment we want the fire department to have today and be able to have in the future. And so what I had expected when we talked to the OPM and the designers was that we would see a list of like, well, here's the equipment required to maintain your current insurance rating or whatever. Here's what's required just for health and safety regulatory. Here's what we think. Here's what's appropriate for Carlisle, but is not technically mandatory, and some cost-benefit analysis around why it might make sense to have, for example, a ladder truck. If it's not technically required, this is why in Carlisle we need it. Here's some cost-benefit, qualitative, quantitative around that. And here's nice to have and or unnecessary. And then you could look at it and say, okay, let's really get to the heart of what does this fire station renovation need to accommodate? And they had the discussion with the fire department, but we haven't had this broader discussion around around the and I say cost benefit, I don't mean just quantitative, around some of this additional equipment that we've brought in that we maintain. So to me, if we're going to set up, I don't want to start from ground zero with a new design committee. A lot of work, a lot of good work's been done. I would focus it on the question of finalizing that equipment list, making recommendations and or providing the rationale and cost benefits around that. So the select board, we as a town can see, here are the requirements, here's what's mandatory, here's what's not mandatory, but you know, we believe is the town would support. We can have a discussion as a community around some of those things, understand what the costs are. When we have that, then we can turn to, and I don't know if the OPM or the designers play a role in that, frankly, I'm not sure they do. Once we finalize that equipment list, we work with the designer to refine the concepts based on that feedback, and that should dictate how many bays do we need. Let's blow out the lower end thing and really get to a suite of concepts that really fit the bill based on that. And then I'm thinking over the summer, and then by September, we have concepts that we can go out and socialize, concepts that we can go out and socialize and make the case for in the community leading up to the next town meeting. But I think this design group should be really focused on answering that question around vetting that equipment list and answering, because that's the heart of.
So to do that, they really need engagement by the senior leadership at the fire department.
Yeah.
This is very technical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, but they also need an outside consultant,
Right.
because we have no.
You have to cross-check it.
it's- You have to cross-check it, because.
We don't have the expertise to do
And
that. Yeah.
you know, I don't want to cast asparagus, but one of our problems is that we have to trust only one person over there, and we can't differentiate between wants and needs, and we have to trust them that it's only needs, but I guess at the bottom line is, we're not trusting about that, and there are I think there's some residents who are also not trusting about that.
Well, I don't know-
And we have no way of judging that without some help, which is why we can't make decisions about this stuff.
I wouldn't characterize it as a trust issue. I think it's the fire department is advocating what they believe is in the best interest of the community from the view of a fire department, versus I think some of the feedback we've heard and some of the questions we asked have been, yeah, I understand all that, but is it worth X, Y, and Z?
Exactly.
As David would say, is the juice worth the squeeze, right, on that one? So I think that's part of what we need to, even if it's not answered, illuminate, so we can all just see what the thought process is and the rationale. Like, again, we've talked about the ladder. I'm not an expert on ladder trucks. I'm not an expert on firefighting, but there's certainly points to be made on both sides of the ledger. So this group, to your point, do we need an expert on the committee? Ideally, I don't know how we do
We have
that.
to fund, I'm sure committee could locate somebody, or the Ryan's group can, but we would have to authorize some funding for that, right?
Well, I think that's what we're going to town meeting for, is to get this, say, last time we said 150,000, and that would be used for this
Right. So-
outreach.
So not all of it has to go to the
OPM and
the OPM and the architect, right? We could peel away 5K or 10K and, yeah.
Right, it's can we do that or not?
as it's worded.
Do we have to specify that in the ask?
You could do that.
We could do what? Ask, specify it,
Or just peel it
or
away.
just peel it away?
You're asking for money in order to conduct this
Right.
design study. It's not specific to any.
Okay.
Okay.
But then the committee itself, if they have that person, senior fire, love someone, select board, FinCom, community member, and then, you spend some time getting into the details, and then we go from there. And I think that's all very achievable, certainly by fall town meeting,
Yeah.
to get to revised concepts with a.
I think you need a good leader of
Yep.
that to make sure you're on target with the
Yeah.
I think
timing.
you're gonna need a couple of you guys, at
Couple of
least,
you.
at minimum.
Use guys.
Use guys.
No, I can't.
Because that's where the strong leadership is going to be coming, because we don't want another committee going off.
No, can't.
And then you have, and then you say, well, gee, thanks for all that hard work, but we don't agree with the thing you did. That's just demoralizing.
No.
So we need to be directing, or you need to be directing from the get-go.
That's why I think the scope has to be.
You need more help, but you guys are still going to have to do most of the work.
One kind of question in that to you, Scott, is So when you look at this, what are you building to, and what is your, I mean, they, on those schematics, and we talked about the time horizons of this, I mean, one of the questions that a consultant would ask you if you said, oh, well, is this necessary? And he'd say, necessary for what? You know, is it necessary for your current fire department to fight fires? Is it necessary for a on-call fire department? Is it necessary for a full, like, I mean, and I'm asking now rather than getting down the road with this and then say, oh, well, we didn't really think about this relative to what the fire department may become. And so
Right.
I think we have to make sure we deal with that.
Yeah, I think there's, to me, I don't know. I think about, again, the conversations we've had to date is, first I want to know, what do we absolutely, mandatory need?
Yeah.
Like, there's a list of a lot of stuff that has to be in place. And then I want to know the stuff that's not on the list, but we still need, quote unquote, let's dig into that, let's understand. And some of that won't move the needle too much, and some of it will move the needle a lot.
Right. I think to circle back to Travis's question, I think you start with some fairly basic stuff, which again, Brian and David and those guys, and a consultant can probably shed light. Like the question that John always asks, slavery, like, is there anything that's significantly going to move the needle on your fire rating? And I think the answer to that is going to be no. Like, it would require enormous investment to move that needle. So, okay. So given that we all know, and you can cite NFPA sources that, fire doubles every 5 minutes, or, there's some metric, right? So given our cisterns and our non-cisterns and our woods and our houses made of wood, like, what makes sense to have for equipment so that you can respond as quickly as possible with the water you need, right? And I think that will identify the tankers and the ladders and the, I mean, I think we can build out a model that, to Scott's point, focuses on what's the best way to serve, forget the building, what's the best way to serve the fire needs? It doesn't need on-call, it doesn't matter. You have to have this kind of equipment for these kind of fires. And I think if they first do that, it'll go a long way to address, okay, this is the stuff, like I liked your categories, like, we absolutely need this stuff. And it doesn't matter that it's required or not. This is what a town that has no, public water supply in all these roads, that's what it needs, right? And I think then you build out from there.
But to my question, building on that, so
Yeah.
my question again is, you could say right now, at this point in time, we have everything we need because we have a fire force that can fight fires in the town. What the chief is saying is, this may be at this moment in time, but 5 years from now and 10 years from now, it's going to look a lot different. So but
I agree with what you're saying, but
well, if you do, then you have to start to say, okay, then what do we need to have in place so that we're prepared for that?
Yes, but first, separate the two things. I don't think you're going to need, technology changes so equipment gets better, but if we need, 2 tankers and a ladder, or whatever the mix is we're not growing so dramatically that the actual big stuff we need is going to change. Like, maybe we decide we need one more bay in case, but basically I think the stuff is the stuff. So the biggest piece is the building that stores the equipment. Then you can go to all the other stuff like the decon rooms and the training rooms and the laptop rooms and all the things that they're talking about, and have a more maybe qualitative analysis of that, but first address the big thing.
Okay, I like Scott's approach because I think the issue is really with the bays and the equipment for the bays.
Right.
Because I think there's consensus around that decontamination and the safety and everything. I think everybody's on board with that, or we can get the town on board. But then you're into the timing of that. So you say, well, I could build an extra bay, but I don't need that right now. But the question is, where are you going to be, and what makes the most sense to build going forward? Because,
what's going to change? We grow at a rate of nothing percent a year.
So the on-call versus the full-time.
How would that change the number of trucks you need?
Well, it could change the amount of spacing, because remember, they
Not
need
for
spacing,
trucks, for
but they need
training.
spacing around around the size of these bays to get, move around.
How is
everything.
that different if you're a volunteer or a paid profession?
Because of staff. I'm not an expert, but I am thinking that
I think
there's,
that's the
there's
big
level of
but
staff.
I think that's a big criteria to say, look, we don't want to build a fire station that omits some element that you might need if you're regionalized, right?
But
So-
it wouldn't be.
No, right.
Okay.
So what would we, if we had to flip the switch in 10 years, is there anything that is not in this concept that needs to be in this concept? And then we can, I mean, it's not black and white, but I think you can at least have some cost benefit. I mean, how much is it gonna cost to buy this extra truck in over 20 years? How much extra space, square footage is required for this truck over 20 years? Okay, it's $8 million and we don't really need it, but is that worth, and maybe the decision is yes, it's worth it because we believe in 10 years, X, Y, Z, I don't know. But at least we've had that debate discussion and we can answer the question of why this fire station costs.
So, so let's go up a level now. What we wanted to do, the reason we're having this discussion now is because at the last meeting, we decided time is kind of the essence. So we wanted to get our brains around what can we write as a charge to accept volunteers, and if we could get that done in a reasonably short time frame, we could convene that, we could interview the people and accept them, and then we could start that committee soon, like June.
Yep.
And then, June, July, August, September, October, 5 months essentially to get us to a point of schematic, whatever, right?
Well, not even schematic, just
No, just concept.
concepts that we
With the
saw,
wrong
at the level
cost.
we saw, that we actually now have
Right.
additional justification behind
Right.
and iteration.
Right. So, again, Barney and I just did this like verbally a couple weeks ago, but broadly speaking, something like 2 months of that,
Yep.
like gather that stuff, organize it. 2 months to work with Tecton
Yep.
to make that into soup, like 2 options or something, I don't know. And then a month to socialize it,
And they could probably, my guess is
Something
they
like
could
that.
probably do it faster because they're pretty far along in terms of, they know this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
They could probably iterate those, but yeah, 2-2-2, like
2-2-1.
2-2-1.
Right now, then you're into
Yeah.
July,
August,
early
September,
November.
October. You're right, 2-2-1,
Yeah, something like that, so.
yeah.
So, are we, but writing a charge takes a little bit of time, so we,
I would like to delegate that to this guy right
yeah,
here.
and it's great.
If he wants to take on this
I don't
responsibility.
even know what our charge is, like, what?
Well, you can look on the website at some of the other
Yeah.
committees.
I think you
Yeah.
you could do it.
But it would be
Or the
focused
police
on,
station.
it would be focused on
Yes.
really on the equipment side of things. And we don't want to look at, I don't think we want to look at like, what, I think we have to just keep it really,
I think if you do a draft, if you have the time between now and town meeting, we're meeting on Sunday.
Yeah, I can- yeah, sure.
Then we can review a draft. We can review a draft, offer public comment at that meeting, and then go back, and then the following meeting.
Offer public comment, so you,
Sorry, not public comment. Well, yeah, well.
I mean, people,
I don't know, it's gonna be a posted meeting, but,
You're right.
but I'm saying, I meant comment among ourselves, because
Yeah.
as we have
Right.
to deliberate, we have to all have a
Right.
posted meeting, so
Right.
we could deliberate. If there was comments that we wanted to give to that, we could do that, and then go back, do one more iteration, and then at another next meeting, have something that's workable. I just think that gives us
and
time.
maybe in the interim, we can like get I'd love to see we never even saw like the laundry list of like equipment that's, I just envisioned this step that never happened. Where show me what the analysis they've already done with all of the elements that they did put into those concepts. I mean, just let's start getting organized. And it's probably 80-20, right? Like 80% of the stuff is like clear one way or the other. Like the antique fire truck, no, it's not required, but,
The reason Scott, I'm suggesting you is because I do think it needs someone who is energized, takes the ball and runs, but also is on the select board so that it gets the buy-in from our board. It's not an independent person
Yeah.
who
Right.
just
Okay.
kind of
Yep.
Right.
does
I'll do
that.
it.
Great.
Let's do it.
All right.
Get on.
Well, and maybe this select board will determine that they want 2 people on the committee or whatever, and something like
I
that.
think to Kate's point, a few of us have to
Yeah, because then
jump in
we,
to help out.
Yeah,
A bigger committee is okay. Not everybody has to go to every meeting.
right.
We need a lot of people to do a
But-
lot of things.
But that way we get buy-in from the select board in the process, so we're all.
And this is going to be, I think at the end of the day, an advisory committee, so the committee's not is ultimately just
Right.
doing the homework and
It
making a
is.
recommendation. It's not
Yeah,
voting.
but the select board member on that, or members, will make sure you're getting the advice you really want, and not, or that you really need is what not that.
Right.
Right.
Like, not the specific recommendation that you want, but you need the information that you need.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But as part of this, we're going to town meeting for this 150,000 to do other things like a site plan review, a wetlands flagging, the stuff that we think
Yes,
is going to
right.
be needed.
Keep
Is
moving
that
the
right,
ball.
Ryan?
So those
Right.
get done ahead of time,
So that
right?
so I'm just
Right.
thinking, because I'm going to be speaking to that, and I'll get those.
And that'll be included in no, this.
That wouldn't be
committee-
included in the charter.
It would not be.
I don't think so.
So, okay, so this.
I want to keep, the
group
committee would
is
be
only
just
focused
focused on.
on the
Focused on
design, what's
just
the
the
design of the
equipment.
building and what it needs to
No.
include.
No, just.
Not even the,
not
well,
even
I
that.
don't-
just
I
the
don't mean the
equipment.
design, but I mean the
Yes.
discussion about all the,
Yes.
all the factors,
Yes.
all the,
Yeah.
considerations and.
Right.
It's not
cost
evaluating how likely an on-call thing is going to be in 6 years. It's like, no, it's just,
benefit. Yeah, although the one thing I do think
there was a.
somehow has to get in there is, would you change anything,
Yeah.
to your point,
What
right?
would the
you change
requirements be
anything
for an on-call
If in
station
10
or
years we
not?
realized,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to go, we're
Right, but that's not a
regionalize.
separate study looking at, yeah.
No,
No,
I liked how you thought about this.
I'm good at
Just go run with it.
staying
Okay.
great,
on.
Good.
Thank you
got
for
to
that,
this
Scott.
point, though, because we are a public meeting, I see there are people who are interested in this topic
Yeah.
online, and I would actually want any kind of feedback, but please be concise. Mr. Lavery or Mr. Bellotta, do you have, or anyone else? Mr. Bales, or? Yes, Mr. Lavery.
I'm good. I think that obviously I will want to provide overwatch, or can we see into what Scott's doing as this goes forward?
Come to the Sunday meeting.
Yeah, these will all be public,
Well,
and
yeah, we're
this will be an
thinking about
open
it as a
process, yeah.
committee- As a committee, so it would be a public, yeah, it would all be public.
And the
He's
committee
gonna
is made
write
up
a
of Scott
charge
and the
that's-
fire chief? That's the part I didn't understand.
Well, so I'd write a committee charge. We'd form a committee and we'd post meetings with minutes and agendas.
Yeah, as long as there's public insight into that, I'm fine with what you guys are taking on here,
Oh,
trying
yeah.
on here.
Yep.
That's my comment.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anyone else online who wants to comment or question? Tom?
Hi. I would agree with John. I think you're going down the right path. It's critical, though, as to who you put on the committee. I think you need some community input on that, however you arrange that. That's all.
Yep.
what is it, who should be on it?
Community input.
Community
Oh, whoa,
input,
who?
it's public committee.
Yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah.
To do this and.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, is there anyone else? If not, I'm going to move on to our next topic here. All right. Oh, it's the town administrator report.
Are we done with that topic?
Unless there's something else you'd like,
So-
unless you want to ask about it.
The amount, we're good with the amount in the warrant, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
did you increase it?
Nope.
I meant that. So two things, that just if you have the willingness to talk about it, is what you mean by outreach. So the part of this was, I went back to the designer and said, you know, you would like some revamped outreach. They didn't suggest it, but I'm suggesting to it, what would be compelling?
I think, to me, and I was thinking about outreach at this stage, I think the outreach comes once we get through this process and have, I mean, we can outreach in terms of having these public meetings and soliciting public input on the discussions, but I think until we actually have, we go through, I wouldn't advise any outreach at this moment in terms of where we are.
I also think the question's going to come up is do we have Tecton or CMS involved in this committee discussion at a point where we were talking about having conversations? And I'm not prepared to answer that, but I think if Ryan's got to procure that, if we're going to do that, right? Procure the services of those or not?
So we do need a phase 2 contract with both the OPM and the designer. So, which leads into the third thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is project timeline.
Before we do that, I thought the 150,000 additional that we're voting on Sunday was to cover the extension of Tecton and CMS through the fall meeting, and that one reason was that we wanted to have more, detailed discussions with not just what you were just describing, but including those two entities, at least in some form, so that rather than us go back and figure out what they already discussed and why they rejected it, right? I mean, that there should be some grounding in what has already been done, that they are best set up to provide.
The way I would envision it is that this committee gets established, it does the research, it comes up with its list. We then have CMS and Tecton at the end of that process, perhaps?
Or it would be great if they're at
Review
least
or involved in
monitoring the
Okay,
process.
then you could
Why
do
not
that.
at the beginning, though,
I don't mean they're not leading the process. I could certainly, it would be great if they would like sit in or attend or watch or hear, or occasionally chime in if they had something to chime in, but I don't see them managing this process.
Right. And then once those equipment list is kind of set, then Tecton goes and develops a plan based on all the stuff that you provided.
Version 2.0 of what we saw.
Version 2.0.
And then
and then we do the community outreach with that plan, see if there are any minor modifications, and then go to town meeting, and then also have a estimator estimate that. And so the town
you have a
meeting, we
number.
say, we have a preliminary number, and we need to raise X amount for the soft costs to do all of the work that is needed to get the construction drawings and everything, so that at the following town meeting, they can have a hard bid, hopefully, in time.
So I think if you did outreach, it's less people giving their feedback on how, it's more educating people about
Right.
what the fire department does, what equipment they need, why this or that, or why not this or that, versus what do you want out of a fire department, right? I mean,
because they won't have the.
and you know, we do have people in the community that certainly do have insights into that, and we want to solicit that, but I don't think that's some blanket, like, I think most people are just want to make sure that we have a good functional fire department.
So
And that we vetted this.
And we've had, well, that's what I mean, the
gone through it.
education of
Yep.
why, how this all adds up,
Yep.
why, if we are presenting we're going down the path to a fire station of some millions of dollars, why is it some millions of dollars and
Right.
not less or not more? Like, how did you arrive at this? And that's
Yeah.
the outreach, it's the education.
when the committee first gets together, I hope you invite Tecton, and the first question to be asked to them is, well, because maybe they've done all this work and we don't know about it. I
Right.
hate for you to launch into all this
I
work
would,
and to
I
find
plan to
out,
meet
oh,
with
gee, they already
Tecton
did
ahead of this, because I need to understand the work that they've done.
I think before you even write your
Yeah.
charge, honestly, because if it's already been done, this might all be moot. Well, I mean, because they did, I guess the question is, when you went and got, interviewed everybody at the fire department, did you use any of your judgment, or did you, about whether you thought some of these requests were frivolous or needful or not? Because we don't know that. They said they got out that information, they gave us the thing, but we didn't get any analysis
Right.
of that. The question is, did you do any analysis, and where are we with that? Because before you do a lot of work, I'd like to see what work have they already done.
Right, and they're the ones that are supposed to be the fire station experts, right? So why not draw
Yes.
on their
Yeah.
No, I know, yep,
experience about what they looked at
I'm
and
not
what
trying to
rejected or
redo any work.
You don't want to
or-
redo the work,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, digging into some of these,
Yeah, I
things
mean,
that have been.
Answer your question.
and then the
Oh, I don't think
timeline,
we've
right?
answered his question. What was your
Did
question?
that answer the outreach
What was the question again?
Project
Yes.
timeline.
Well, there were two of them, the outreach
My
and then
job
the
is to help
timeline.
you with time management.
Yeah.
So, one of my jobs. How long do you see this committee work?
We said 5 months, right?
To the fall town meeting.
Two and one.
The committee to decide the equipment list?
No, but I could see that committee being available to support the outreach or answer questions.
So there's
Yeah.
a finite time it takes to develop a conceptual design.
Right.
The estimator definitely takes a month. Right,
Yep.
so if we need,
So tell us the timeline.
Well, no, I mean,
You're asking
I
the
get
question
it.
of tell us for timeline, but you have information, so tell us to make the fall town
Yes, yes.
meeting with what we want, what's the timeline?
Back it out, so
Yeah.
you'd,
A month to
we'd
do
need
the,
the,
let's
Well,
back
the
it out.
committee
For
should
the
take it to
estimator.
town, to
Let
full town
Ryan
meeting.
talk here.
Yeah.
Why would you cut it
Just
short?
let him talk. He's,
so in order to establish a committee, you'll need to approve a charge and then get people. So you're looking at conceivably mid-June to start.
Yep.
So if that's gonna meet twice a week for a month in a concerted way, I think we can make the fall town meeting timeline. If that extends out through August, that's why I'm asking you what type of outreach you want. Because if you want to have meaningful outreach, like kitchen table conversations and surveys, et cetera, that's gonna take approximately a month to gather any meaningful data that you would absorb. And then it has to be presented and digested by the board, and then it has to be revamped.
That's outreach to get a vote at town meeting. It's not outreach to refine, I mean, I think you're just,
But I think the questions are, I agree with Scott, the questions are gonna be very technical. They are best addressed by people who have expertise in the field. If we feel we have under-researched the broad mandate of do we need an upgrade to the fire department building, we should have done that like a year ago. I think we've come out and said, based on our best knowledge, and we were elected to make certain calls,
Yeah.
that we need it.
Yeah.
So, I don't think we want to go back to kitchen
No, no,
table
no.
and
No.
all that, right?
No.
Let's go narrowly, that's why I said earlier, I think we go, I think, I agree with you, the committee has to hit the ground running, and they have to really focus on specific technical issues and get those, at least get some consensus around them. And as was said here, it's a little bit about, we kind of already know what Brian says of why he wants what he wants. We need somebody else who's not invested in the town, just who has an expertise to kind of qualify. Does that make sense? And okay, then let's move on. And let's establish those things.
and understand the cost of it too.
Oh, right, everything's right, the cost, right.
right. So,
But I mean, going back to for fall town meeting, I think we want to be in a position to go to the next step in the process, which I guess would be schematics, correct?
You mean prepare a cost to get to schematics, or-
Yeah,
right, yeah.
that's what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So to get a conceptual design with a rough cost estimate, a strong cost estimate in front of the town, the select board is going to have to invest, or really is going to have to delegate a lot of this decision-making to make that time frame. If what I'm hearing, all these pieces need to be done, is true. I just want to have a conversation about that to make sure that expectations are clear, or that we can schedule with the next chair what these meetings are going to look like.
I think the committee is, I think the select board will be kept up to speed with what's going on, but I think the next act for the select board would be to see the revised concepts. And I think at that point, it would be pre-sold, so you'd know what you were gonna see before you saw it. And there'd be buy-in, and so it becomes, it's not like what happened the first go-around.
and then from that point, it would go to Tecton to then develop the design.
But we'd have to go to town meeting to get funds for them to go.
No, but the schematic, at least a more deep, similar to what they were proposing in their option 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Something like that, and and somebody giving us a better estimate of the potential cost. That's what we want going into fall town meeting. Is that right? Yeah.
I think the hope
And
was
so-
that we were going to do that in a very compressed time frame and be in that position for this town meeting.
Yeah, no, I know.
And that wasn't realistic.
Right.
Um,
But I'm just trying to go back to Ryan's point, so that we would want Tecton to start their revised version
Probably
and have
August,
that
right?
done by August, and then the estimators working
start
on it in
going in
September?
And
The
then,
estimator will need 4 to 6 weeks, typically.
Did they do the estimation on, estimator to do what? To do the schematics?
So they take the conceptual design and then assign a cost.
Give you an
and that
estimate,
takes 4 to
yeah.
6 weeks.
So the concepts that they presented to us, had that all gone through estimators?
No.
Okay.
Right, so maybe the deadline for this, for the committee, the select board, whatever is to have an agreement about what the elements are for Tecton's new
So it has to go to an estimator by
design.
mid-September.
And then the estimator, right?
And then, so
Mid-September,
Tecton needs,
Mid-October, well,
so if you,
I think you
Same.
should be shooting more for mid-September for the estimator, so you have it in mid-October, because then you want to do that, the kind of outreach we're
Yeah.
doing now around it, going into the fall town meeting, right, which is November something or other.
So I'm
November
not
2nd.
not trying to trick anyone, I'm just trying to
Okay.
dig, but when you say outreach, do you mean a design and a number, or just a design?
If I can speak on this, I would say that, you keep saying multiple schemes. I think the goal would be that you first get the equipment list and get all that. It gets, comes to the select board for just saying, yep, we're on board, we like what you've done. You then have it done to do the schematic,
Or the
with the
concept.
concept plan. Yeah, well, the concept, it comes out and then everyone checks off on it and says, okay, it looks good. Then we get the estimator or whatever involved, or maybe it's in process. And then, unlike this last one where we said, oh, there are 3 concepts and we have to pick one this night because we're gonna go, we're only gonna have one concept. We're gonna have the one that we've worked on, and that gets then, I don't know what it is, sold or whatever. Marketed to the town, outreach. But in this instance, it's a little different because I think we've done a lot of the work, right? To this point, we've said, well, what do we need? How big? I think we've narrowed our scope as a board, and I would feel comfortable taking a stronger leadership stance as a board, saying, we've done this, we've already narrowed this down, this is health and safety, this is the gender equality, equity, but this is also now the right bay sizing and the right plan going forward. And so I think we could get there.
All right, so let me take a straw poll. So we charge a committee this month. We
Yep.
get the committee going in June.
Yep,
Hopefully by
end of July.
end of July, there's a second look or first look by the select board, like here's the concept based off of the information that we received.
Concept,
The
Well, no,
committee
this is-
recommends the equipment,
So you had
This is
said
the
the committee would do
equipment
the
list.
equipment list and inform that first design, right? Or did I go too far?
no, I don't think Tecton's doing any designing at this point.
Okay, so the
Until we-
equipment
Just
list
the
goes to the select
equipment
board. Then once the equipment list is agreed upon, then the design
and the
happens.
design happens.
Tecton goes back to its concepts and takes the input, and hopefully, I would think they've done a lot of the
Yeah.
foundational work, and they're familiar with the site, so they can iterate and then hit something fairly close to the mark, right?
So that concept comes back to the select board.
We say-
Yep, we all agree.
Looks great,
Then it's estimated,
yep.
and then it goes for outreach for a vote at town meeting.
After you all come back to consciousness,
Yeah,
after
community-
passing out,
Right.
finding out how much this is going to cost, but never mind.
But you know what? I think that we've
Gotta happen.
experienced that already, and it was a shock, and so it's like, okay, now we know this is where.
What are we
you know,
taking?
Yeah,
to the
I know.
fall
The
meeting?
days of
And
a
what are we
$5
asking
million
for? That's what I always
annex
get
are.
confused
They're
about.
gone.
Are we still just asking for money to get us to the Springtown meeting?
All right, so the question that was just asked of me for everyone is, what are we taking to fall town meeting? So
What's realistic?
It's up to you. The idea in the past was that you would take this really good, strong project that's estimated and get all the design funds that's needed to send that through bidding.
Right.
Which is expensive. It's gonna be 10% of whatever the total project is, and back out this initial design cost, right? So let's say $1 million.
And that's also the 6 to whatever month time frame you typically need to do that stage. Because we were talking about the Springtown
It
meeting.
would be a
This is
strong
getting the
push.
construction.
I think they said it
done.
would be a horse race to get it from November to May or whatever.
Right.
That's gonna be a hard charge to get to the,
So we would need to bid it by March, number in April for a town meeting in April, May. That's what you'd be asking?
Yeah.
So that will be both, assuming you would do the same financial plan, that will be both a town meeting vote and a special election. Or a
Yep.
debt exclusion vote. 'Cause it's-
again, if it's the big, who knows what next year is, but if it's the biggest spend thing, we can push the town meeting as late as we can. I mean, right, we have that ability.
As late in the spring as we can, yeah.
But
Okay,
there's not a
so-
lot of room for,
Equipment list, approve it. Design, approve it. Estimate, outreach,
That's right.
ask.
And I think by the
Town
time you
meeting,
get to
yeah.
outreach, you guys will all understand things so much better and be able to advocate.
That's right.
And explain so much better because you will have learned that.
well, and part of the process of this work has to be creating the materials that you're doing the outreach. I mean, it has to
Right.
all be
Right.
pushed out in a way
Right.
that's digestible and,
Right.
So I think the designers, I think the key is the committee being fast and efficient. If
Yep.
that doesn't happen, you're not gonna make the timeline.
Right,
Right.
right.
okay.
Yeah.
Don't know anything about fire equipment, but
Well, I mean, and
I'm
so,
gonna guess it's gonna come down to a few key things, right?
Yeah.
but, so that, but your
Fire,
point,
trucks.
your point, Ryan, is,
Oh, but you can't
who
get
else is
sidelined
serving?
with all this.
Scott,
Yeah.
the question is, though, who else is gonna be on that committee?
Yeah.
Just, I would say fairly small, and
Yep.
people that are ready to
Yeah.
put the time in, and are not gonna bring in all kinds of brand-new ideas and going
Nope.
out to, you know,
Right.
bring in a new designer and that kind of stuff, right?
Nope.
We're on this path.
Yeah, we're on the
Right.
path.
And the
And how are we,
smallness
so
also.
are we
This is
gonna
on
reach out to people that, how do we determine who would be good volunteers on this
Well,
committee?
we have to put it out to the general process that we have, right?
Yeah.
But I think we should be appointing, like, the fire chief should be on there.
Right.
Well, maybe you
Select
could,
board, I don't think it should be more than a 5-person committee.
Correct.
Or
Yeah, because otherwise you'll get quorum problems. and never
probably a
be able
member
to
from the
meet.
community,
Right.
maybe someone from FinCom or Finance or something, I don't know.
Good idea.
That's probably not,
What about MFC?
maybe someone from MFC. You know, I'm not adding more people, I'm just saying,
Whoever your select board member is, who is the MFC representative?
Might be one and the same.
well, could be.
As many twofers as you can get.
But yeah, this is not time to, like, we're not
Right.
blue skying,
Yeah, no.
painting on canvas, we're like,
Right.
digging
what's
in.
in, what's out, like, let's,
Right.
and which items really move the needle on a design? Like, I don't want to debate about where we're gonna put the rubber tubing, you know, it's like, no, the big ticket items, where is the real meat here?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And you're gonna just have to, like, scope it and just be lean and mean about it. But I think all the I mean, there's so much information already out there that's been, the past reports and all the emails and everything. There's so much research that's been done by the community, by the different chiefs. If we have the experts coming in, I don't think it's gonna take a lot of, like, research. I think it's gonna be a lot of discussion and
Right.
debate.
And judgment.
And putting together the explanation and rationale, and I think in a digestible way.
Yeah. So just on a sort of timing front, you know, if we want to get something in the mosquito that says we're putting together this committee, here's its purpose, we're looking for, an at-large member, somebody representing this. Normally, we say there has to be 2 weeks' notice. That's what we've said in our, creating a volunteer committee. So it should be, go into the mosquito
Go
on
next
Monday.
week or
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Correct.
we tell people that are interested,
I'm sorry, can I try to
yeah,
help?
sure,
So this committee, you're gonna have to believe their recommendation to meet this timeline.
yep.
So if they say you need
Work's
30,000
gonna
square
have to
feet.
justify it.
Well, yeah, no, actually.
So will you be convinced by a membership composition that includes an at-large member? Do you need that at-large member? If there isn't an at-large member, are you not going to believe that the community would be behind the equipment list?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's a really,
The process would allow for ample public input. And this isn't a voting committee, so whether you're on the committee or not on the committee, you can still have input.
You're gonna show up at an open.
And share
meeting.
information.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, if that's not true, then you don't need a 2-week advertising. What you need is what committees or expertise are gonna convince you that.
Just ask
And
if they
ask
submit a
them to
representative.
to nominate somebody or
Good
to
point.
recommend somebody?
Yes, but
Yeah.
I don't want this to be misconstrued as a non-public process. But
Right.
this really is your group to
Well,
advise
it
you.
shortcuts the having to advertise.
Right, the
vet
waiting
candidates,
period.
blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's a good point.
But if you need a community member to feel better about it, then you should do that, is what I'm saying.
They're all from the
Together.
community, right?
you mean if a board member, we mentioned FinCom or whatever, they're not a community member?
They are.
Right.
Like, usually you have an at-large member to
Right.
represent the non,
Right,
in the group
right.
volunteer types, so that you can get more ideas. But if this isn't one of those boards, then I don't think I think it's just paper dressing.
I think that's.
The question is, do we have, for instance, we had a retired police chief in town who came in and,
Fire chief.
no, he was a police chief.
You know, for the fire station.
We happen to have a
Yeah.
retired fire chief.
So the question is, if there were, let's say, one from a different community, which would, for me, would be even more ideal than one from our committee. If they were one that had worked in a different community but lives in our community and could be one of your at-large, that would be ideal. But just any old at-large, I don't think is,
Right.
And
The
you
question
can't.
is not, the charge is not, what does the fire department mean to the community? This is, again, a very
No,
specific.
that's why I'm thinking.
Which is
in
why I'm
terms of
like.
The equipment, I think it's this damn equipment question, which is so crucial,
Yeah.
that we need some help on, because we can't answer it. And we need to have, I think, some independent, somebody who doesn't maybe have the same kind of skin in the game as somebody who is in the department, to help us with.
Do you have someone?
I don't know, I wish I'm just,
So I don't know. I mean, I think,
I'm gonna take a shot here. I don't think that person exists.
okay, it may not, well,
And
just.
why couldn't this committee, reach out to, say, a town that,
No,
that is hold on a second,
Yeah.
that's an on-call, that has an on-call, and ask whoever the fire chief is, would you be willing to come to our next meeting? We'd like to, talk with you about X, Y, Z. There's no reason
You
the
can always
committee
bring
won't do
that.
that.
So I think
Rockport has
it's
an on-call.
back to
Yeah.
the narrow focus of this committee, and I think that, having a, committee that's going to be decisive and, effective is going to be
And work,
better.
willing to put in the time.
Is going to be
Yeah.
better in
Yeah.
this instance for what this task is. This is, I just think that's going to be better.
yep,
Yep.
Okay?
Sure.
So that means that it probably wouldn't be it'll be a public committee. It'll
Right.
and I would encourage the public, anyone who's interested, to attend and offer input, and whoever's chairing that committee would,
Yeah.
seek that, because you've got to get all the, information out.
no, and there's a lot of
But
great information.
But as far as then coming back with the recommendation, having the people, who are in that committee, as voting members, I think as a smaller group is going to be more effective.
Okay. What does that mean?
So your charge is going to also
Can we
then
identify-
indicate the categories.
We could just identify them.
Okay.
Fire chief,
Select board?
select board, probably 2 members of the select board, I would suggest, but this is my,
Fire chief ex officio, right? Or can
Yeah, I
he be-
think fire
No.
chief should be.
He can be on the committee.
Ex officio.
Yes, but typically they have not had a vote.
That's
'cause it's
ex
a
officio.
con-
Right, I know, I'm just saying.
Ex
And which-
officio.
and-
We typically write it
when
as
you
a
make it ex
non-voting
offi-
member.
And when you, well, see, when you make it ex officio, I think also, then you don't have that quorum problem.
Right.
because it
Well,
leaves
no, it
out-
creates a different room, but yes. right.
Well, it's like from, we
So
said
two
FinCom.
select board,
or
FinCom,
FinCom, which is,
MFC,
MFC is
environmental,
helpful.
ESC
Yes.
should probably have.
What about, are there any key stakeholders from the fire station project that might have relevant,
You mean police
Police
station?
police station that might have relevant perspective on municipal,
Construction.
at least from a broad perspective? Like,
Sarah Spinney, is she an architect?
Suzanne.
I'd like someone, FinCom or finance, because I think we want to look at some of these long-term costs and think about the right way of framing that.
Yeah,
Definitely want
But you're trying to do just 5, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
What's
Two
5 or
select board,
7?
FinCom, MFC, and ESC.
So if there are 2 select board, you being one of
Well,
them.
one,
And then
but yeah,
one
maybe not two then.
FinCom or MFC, or one of each, you're at 4.
Yep.
And then-
ESC, you gotta be ES.
Oh, the Sustainability Committee.
For the equipment,
No, I don't think you need ESC for that.
No, okay,
I don't think we need it for this particular focus.
okay.
The building committee, maybe.
Building committee?
Is
Is there
there
any
such a
staff
thing?
that should be on this? Like, is you, like, is it?
What building committee?
What is the building committee?
What do you mean when you say building committee?
You'll eventually have a building committee.
Oh, for
Steering
the,
project.
yeah, right.
Is there anyone within town hall staff
Of course,
that would be good to be on this?
ESC would weigh in early, as,
There's no, okay.
you know.
We definitely should, this
Not for
committee should
fire
definitely
equipment.
invite them to come on
And then what about this idea of finding an independent expert? Do those exist, do we
No, We've
think?
got an expert, we've got Tecton and we've got our OPM.
They're the ones that can
They
serve as
have
the
expert,
independent?
they
Okay.
have expertise in this
Right.
area, I think. And if they
Yeah.
don't, they may, you know, to John Lavery's point, they duck, but if they, you know.
But we're
you
gonna
can-
want
you
one of
can-
them on
You
this
can,
working group.
well, but they're not gonna vote, but they can, yeah, show up and participate. You ask them questions, they gather
We
information.
need them, yeah, they definitely need to be involved.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about who like votes, who makes the decision to
I
bring
don't
the
care.
recommendation to the
I
select
care less
board.
about who votes than who's doing the actual, like,
Yes,
work.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like in the actual discussions, when someone's saying, no, we need this, and it's critical that we did, and then someone say, well, I hear what you're saying, but you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be the
Back and forth.
back
but
and forth.
When you get down, though, to this group being ready to say, all right, well, here's what we're going to ask.
Yeah.
We're going to give to Tecton.
The equipment list, yeah.
Right?
Or whatever.
If there's some, choices still,
Yep, we
right?
need a
You may
vote,
have
yes.
to take a vote.
Yes, absolutely.
So you want
No
to have.
question.
Is there a
have it
state
clear.
office? That you could ask?
Isn't there an Office of Fire Safety or something?
Yeah, maybe.
Sure.
State?
I don't know, I'm just,
Well, I think,
But you don't put them on the committee, but you can
No,
invite
but-
them in. to
5
help.
voting members.
Yeah.
so you're,
And then we'll bring in all the people.
yeah.
We can have as many non-voting people that
two
participate. as
select
we-
board,
So maybe the fire chief isn't a voting member, but he's there for the discussions on,
Yep.
he's an advisor, a technical advisor to the
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And maybe the other expert, if we have someone from Tecton, they're not a voting member, because,
Okay, so
Sarah
2
and
select
remember.
board, FinCom, ESC, and MFC, that's 5.
I don't know if I need ESC.
It's probably good to keep at the table. We made a commitment to include them, right?
Okay. Okay.
That gives you
I
5.
just don't want the scope,
Yeah,
I don't want, this isn't about like, this is more about the equipment and that Tecton's gonna, because Tecton's gonna design with the ESC in mind, right? These are like the ingredient, I don't know, there might be overlap in terms of the technical equipment and ESC. All right, well, I'll prepare something, we'll discuss on Sunday. And I'll include like,
Yeah, and if you're able to get it out to us, the day before,
Saturday by
then
midnight.
people could think about it.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll get something out Saturday.
okay?
Exactly what we needed, so this is good.
Okay,
Keep us on track. I'm into the manager TA report here, unless you have something else. Capital Useful Life vote.
Yes,
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
20 years.
it's gonna be 20 years when we get to that point, just prompting you.
I moved 20 years.
Second.
Second.
All those in
All
favor?
right, it was
Aye.
made a motion by Scott and seconded by Kate. Any further discussion? We know the issue. It was incorrect. It can't be 25. Minimum is 20,
Right.
or maximum is 20.
We debate, I remember.
All in
debating.
favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right,
We're back on track.
here's my town administrator report for May 13th. The town meeting videos and podcasts, with 1 week to go to town meeting, our collection, as you talked about tonight, is vast. A lot of town officials are using the videos to get up to date on some of the information. I've used them myself, so please use them. The more informed voters are, the more the discussion will be rich at town meeting, and the town, as usual, will make good decisions. Sylvia Willard's retirement party has been set. So town officials, staff, and residents are welcome to join us May 29th at 4 p.m. for an informal gathering at Great Brook Farm, which is where she wanted to have this done. So we reserved the picnic table area and the barn area in case it rains. So we're inviting you to celebrate more than 25 years of conservation efforts at one of the largest conservation areas in the region, and perhaps have some ice cream. We hear it's good. For our human resources update from our HR director, soon to be returned, Aubrey Thomas, we're pleased to present tonight Jeffrey Katowski, the recommended candidate for the COHS director. So Jeffrey brings nearly 2 decades of experience and most recently at the Cambridge Council on Aging, where he rose from a part-time pantry assistant to director of that senior center. As you saw tonight, he is very well spoken and thoughtful. He is going to bring a great energy to our team and to help the COHS with the next phase of their service delivery. Also, you'll be glad to know that Sylvia is joining us again right after I announce her retirement party. She's going to be working part-time as a conservation consultant. So this will just be for a couple months, but it'll be very important. So she's going to provide guidance to the commission in the interim, and then eventually the new conservation administrator. What we've asked her to do is put together a comprehensive document that will orient the new conservation administrator and also help the CONSCOM with long-term decision-making. And this is something that the Conservation Commission really wanted, was that transition of knowledge. So we're happy to bring Sylvia in. Everybody knows how much she knows about the town and history, so we're looking forward to that document. Also, 17 of our staff members from across town participated in a 5-part supervisory training series with the UMass. We did a couple sessions here in Town Hall, several hours long. The staff is focusing on both succession planning and management, and we had a lot of our mid-level or mid-career employees go to this management training to help bolster their skills. This was grant funded, and we were happy to offer this opportunity, and we will be doing more of this in the future. In terms of the FY26 budget, the most interesting item since your last meeting was the Senate Ways and Means Committee published their budget recommendations. This included $150 per student for minimum aid communities like Carlisle. So this brings up our state aid total more than $45,000, which would lower the projected FY26 budget impact from 3.46 to 3.31. The reason why we're not including this in the budget presentation material is this is not a final budget. It is just a recommendation from one of the legislative branches. We will not see a state budget until well past town meeting, so we're using the conservative number, which is the governor's budget. Something important that I presented to the Finance Committee and now presenting to you, the CCRSD School Committee voted on April 10th to use $400,000 from their E&D fund to make a $200,000 OPEB contribution, and then add $200,000 to their capital stabilization fund. So E&D funds operate like the town's free cash, with the exception that the school committee can directly appropriate, meaning they can vote on their own to do this. If the town disagrees with their decision, you need to schedule a town meeting vote and reject the appropriation. That has to be done within 45 days, which is pretty quick. I didn't have any issue with this. I'm just bringing it to your attention as something that happens. But I did speak to Bob, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations, and talked to him about how If there's going to be transfers to stabilization funds, we need to make sure that we understand the high school's capital planning and have that embedded in our capital planning, because this will be another source of funding or reserves that we can use to help pay for capital. So I'm calling that to your attention and the Finance Committee's attention, because we talk a lot about reserves. This is another pot of money that exists.
So I have to ask you for a clarification. By statute, they can only carry an E&D of 5%. There's some percentage, right?
It's 5.
They go over, they have to do something with it.
Yeah.
And you're saying the school committee can do it on its own cognizance and not have to consult the towns about that? Is that true?
They have to tell you, and then you can act on it if you want, through town meeting.
Okay, so, I don't have the energy to challenge it at this late date, but that's not really great, right? I mean, they took 400,000, which is a huge amount of money, and they salted it away, and that's kind of like, you know,
Right.
not giving the towns who actually paid that money the chance to decide whether, so, I don't know what to do with that, and I'm surprised in my years of being on school and region, I didn't wake up to that fact that they could just do it, but I don't like it, so we can't break the agreement, but we gotta talk to, I mean, I don't like it the way Connery sent you like a 2-line email, and he said, and at least what you attached, or Gretchen did, I attached my capital plan, and there was nothing attached that I saw, so, like, this is like not very courteous at the least. I would register stronger language to them to say, okay, you got it, but next time, we really would appreciate that you give us more context of why you need what you need, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just a
Especially,
lot of money.
I mean, I
And
understand
way overfunded OPEB. and,
the
you know,
OPEB, well, I know, but the 200K to the capital stabilization, do they have a project that's on the horizon that we should know about?
Right.
Because how do we plan, as you pointed out?
It may be something we have to consult with our school committee to, I mean, I don't want this to be misconstrued, but the representatives on our school committee that go to the region are a little light on that regional experience. And I can tell you from personal experience, region is a tough assignment. And there's 5 of the Concordians and 2 of the Carlilians, and it's a very hard thing to challenge in that context as a Carlilian. You have to be tough, and you have to have been there a while, which has been a few people, you can guess who they are, but a lot of times not. So we may want to meet with our own school committee and just get, for the next time, I don't think this cart is, horses out of the barn here, but it's not right. Like, it's not really right. And I think it should be, they should know that we would prefer a more collaborative, or at least a little bit of outreach on that before they make that decision.
The school committee's meeting tomorrow night if you want to talk to them.
No, I don't.
Well, and then in the next year's budget, I can see 200K in OPEB they won't need to contribute, and another,
Yeah.
they have that extra money in their capital stabilization fund, so I wouldn't mind.
Because they were putting like 750K in their OPEB fund every year.
The
and
problem is we don't have, we have no leverage on the op budget, but we have a lot of leverage on the cap budget. So anyway, I think it's enough for this late hour, but it deserves.
I talked to Bob a lot. I think he's extremely smart, and the people there are extremely smart. He does see, he's newer, right?
Yeah.
He's able to look at things. He does see a lot of capital on the horizon. I just think we need to download his thoughts into a
Okay,
capital
that
plan.
may be fair. So maybe we should invite them this summer to present that plan.
Equipment.
And
What do they need?
The soft
They need a
levers.
backhoe, maybe they could buy us a backhoe.
The soft levers here are talking to Concord about OPEB savings and how that impacts operating costs, and enforcing capital planning, and then also understanding how we are also backing up the regional district's budget with our reserve fund, and they are as well. So they're maxing out their reserves.
Who's the they now, the towns or the schools?
We calculate our 12%, including their funds, and they have 5% in reserve E&D. So
Right.
just talking about that in future
Okay.
finance plans.
Fair, I think fair. Okay, thank you. Let's keep going.
So moving on, natural transition to climate leader recognition. Sarah, myself, and Eric attended the Commonwealth's announcement of the first communities to achieve this. So it was pretty inspiring. There was 19 other communities. We went to Watertown, and the Lieutenant Governor praise the towns that were willing to make this commitment, and they're showering us with $1 million to help with our sustainability goals. So what this says is the hard work that the select board put into this, and it was a difficult process to get here, working with Eric and Sarah, really paid off. The town has made many commitments, and only 19 communities have made that, so I think the town should be proud of that effort.
Yeah.
You heard a lot tonight about your community choice aggregation report. I won't go over it again in detail, but I do encourage residents to understand this process. We also provide a report to you, and that's to keep you informed about the CCA, so it's not a new discussion every time it comes up. If it does come up every 2 years, there'd be changes in board leadership and everything, so this is part of your report for that reason. You'll see from Sarah's report that overall enrollment experienced a slight decline, but is pretty much right where we expect it to be. And that, as you heard tonight, fluctuations in the energy market continue to make projections difficult. It seems like 3 months ago, but the Carlisle 250th, I just want to thank Scott Evans, Rich Sibley, and their army of volunteers for their efforts.
It's a great effort.
Yes,
Really fun.
absolutely.
Also, the town staff was heavily involved, police, fire, DPW, and the COHS for their efforts, which allowed Carlisle residents to attend the historic event for free. I was there with my children, sitting on the buses, more than 500 people, and I think that's a low estimate, including as many of you, marched to the North Bridge, and then there was many thousands of people at the North Bridge, to include what we think is 1,500 Carlilians that attended the event and used the buses.
1,500, really?
Oh, we saw a lot of them, of course, we
Yeah,
were
we saw a lot of them.
walking up the street.
The buses were full, and that's what Rich estimated.
They didn't all walk.
No.
But they
Right.
took the
Yeah,
bus.
it was good.
So I can tell the event went well, because I heard some people saying that, maybe we didn't need what we needed, right, and it was too much, and that usually means
Right.
that's a good day.
They had so many porta potties in Concord, it was unbelievable.
I know.
And we had one at the trailhead, and there was like 600 people lined up for that.
Concord had like,
I was
Right.
panicking because of my son, so
You
anyways.
guys camped out here the night before, right?
We did, yeah, we came
Good
down.
for you.
We watched 30 kid versions of the Battle of Lexington and Concord, so my kids knew everything about it. I would also like to say that our Senator Michael Barrett did put in an amendment for us to receive funding. We do have a $30,000 earmark in one of the supplemental budget requests, and
good
it
luck.
looks like we might actually get that. So
Really?
if you
Wow.
want to email your state senator, then maybe we can push that through. And that would help our budget for FY25 and our free cash for FY26. The 2024 annual report is now out. There are some diehard people who are waiting for this report, and this year's includes some color pictures from our students. We printed less but had more quality, and the goal is to try and make this an award-winning report rather than just something that sits on my shelf. We're not there yet, but we're getting there, thanks to the hard work of Gretchen Gallimore, who put this together. If anyone has ever done the gather things from many people, that's like this on steroids, to get this from all the committees and boards, so Gretchen did a great job with that.
Yeah.
Some quick capital project updates. Our culvert analysis has been pushed off a lot because of town meeting focus, but you'll be receiving that report in June. And some of our efforts to address that $3 million price tag that's gonna come with these culvert requests. You heard tonight about the elevator maintenance project. It came in under bid, which is something we don't get to say a lot, so I'm gonna say it
Yeah.
again, that it came in under bid. And we now have a number for town meeting for this important project. The brick building HVAC project continues. The MFC is working through that. We have all the funding we need, and now we're just gonna go out to bid. And then the town hall bathroom renovation, we've had a lot of problems getting this contracted. It may need to go back out to bid, and we'll have more updates for this. Luckily, it's not an urgent item. It's an item that we want to get done, so there's no operational impact. Building construction projects, I encourage you to check in on your library building committee and your library trustees as they're moving forward pretty quickly with CMS and Schwartz Silver through their design process. The MFC is also collaborating with them to talk about the mechanical room expansion and coordinating the elevator repair. So it's a very complex issue that's going to come at you very fast. So whatever you need for information about the library renovation, please ask.
And the heating coils too, no?
Yes, the coils too will eventually be incorporated. So it's a multifaceted problem. in a good way. The police station renovation, we're just looking for the town to support this project, and we can hopefully get some shovels in the ground in June.
Yeah.
And for this one, I do think we should get one of those ceremonial, like shiny shovels. Like,
Yeah, and have a
most building
ribbon
projects,
and,
yeah, like we need to
yeah.
do it right. I don't normally recommend that, but this one deserves it.
There'll be a lot of use for it in the future years if we.
I
Sadly.
encourage
Sadly.
residents to follow along on the fire station renovation project, and I know the board doesn't want to talk about that more tonight. The DPW building is coming to you again in June with that culvert analysis. Some important things for you to focus on post-town meeting are going to be personnel policy changes. This is going to be a lot, and it's going to be many adjustments that require a lot of conversation, so the more invested you are in this, the easier it'll be. Also, we've invited the MCRS, which is Middlesex County Retirement System, to come talk to you about why your costs are going to be bananas for the next 10 years. I think you should talk to them and understand their perspective to help inform those budget conversations, because that 26% increase we're facing is going to come up every couple years. And so I think you should talk to them about it, even if it's briefly. And then we will be coming to you with a supplemental road maintenance plan. This comes from the additional investment we hope is approved at town meeting. And then some of your conversations last year about parity roads, culvert repairs, and other important topics. I have a slew of approvals that are within your policies, but we like to let you know that they're happening for town signs and town common usages. And I would like to end with some good staff recognition. So I attended the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection's drinking water program, which is one of those ones that's not well named, but it is well attended. There was more than 100 people celebrating the public water delivery in Massachusetts, and Carlisle Public Schools was one of them. We had one of the highest scores for non-transient, non-community system category, which is fancy for students are there sometimes and they're not, and we have very good water that's maintained by our facilities department. So Stephen accepted the award, and we put a picture up of him.
That's a big improvement. Yeah.
Yeah. The Acton Fire Department recognized your fire department for providing personnel and apparatus in response to a large mulch and brush fire in North Acton on Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2025. So our volunteers responded on Easter Day to help a neighboring town, which is great. The fire chief in Acton described the incident as particularly challenging because of the terrain, the gusty winds, if you remember that on Easter Day, and the significant distance to a reliable water source, which is where Carlisle made its money, because we are good at that.
Yeah.
I would also like to recognize Gretchen, not only for the annual report, but for her professional development focus. So despite her workload and all the things you know she does, she completed a rigorous course on performance management as part of the 2025 Virtual Municipal Leadership Academy. She's also working on a HR certificate for as part of the state program, so she can expand that skill set. So she is definitely helping us, and we are definitely not going to be able to keep her for very long. So I just want to make sure everybody knows how great she is and that we want her to stay. And lastly, Sarah Wassman, also for her dedication. You saw her present tonight. She recently completed a stormwater certificate program through the University of New Hampshire. This is a multi-workshop program that provides an in-depth understanding of how infrastructure design and maintenance impact watershed health. So we'll be putting her to work here as we discuss things like culvert and water management, especially with our
hydrology.
with our MVP planning process. And then there's a couple draft agendas in there for you, in addition to the CCA report and other items as referenced in the report. Unless there's any questions, that's all I have for you tonight.
Are we meeting on the 27th?
I don't believe
May?
we are, because I'm not going to be available, and I think you're not available.
I mean, I could join via Zoom, but I'm not, yeah. I'm going to be my grandson's graduation.
Yep.
But I'm free that evening, but
Oh, town elections.
And you're not available, Kate, and we don't have a new member at that point.
till after the
Until
election.
Till after
yeah.
the election, so we won't have a quorum. So we will not be meeting on the 27th. Now, I say that in thinking about our fire station committee, and do we need to keep the momentum? Is there a reason to have some interim?
Let's talk about it on Sunday.
Okay,
See where we're at.
okay.
Right, because
We
we'd
approve a
have
charter
we'd have
and
to
we
have a
can-
public meeting to approve the charter and, right?
So your next available regular meeting would be the 10th of June.
Yeah, which is a long time.
Normally, you would have a meeting on,
Yeah, that's the
Third.
problem with getting the committee. Well, do we need a meeting to get with the committee if you vote to charge?
If
You just
if
go
you,
tap them or
I guess if we approve the charter on
Sunday?
Sunday,
But how do we get the committee?
if you approve it and there's no 2-week, well, you would just appoint the committee on the 10th.
that's still late, isn't it?
Well, they could meet on the 11th. And
Should we look for an alternative date sooner?
you can't do the 3rd because of the election.
How about the 20th? And just a
Of
special,
May.
and just a special meeting
could
for
do-
this
we could-
purpose, or we could have a morning meeting.
And just do a
Or
hard,
just
yeah.
like a hybrid morning type
Yeah.
thing.
if you meet in the morning, I can
It's also,
zoom
you know,
in.
Yeah.
The week of the,
Well,
next
good.
week you're
But
talking about.
Late at night, it's,
Yeah,
you know,
next
six,
week.
6 hours.
Let's just bang this out
If you
from
started
a,
at 7, it's 1 o'clock in the morning for me, so, but if
Okay,
you start at
perfect.
7 in the morning, it's 1 in the
Well, but
afternoon.
we're talking about next week, aren't you?
Yeah.
Here next week, but then you're officially resigned though, as of Sunday, right?
Yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah.
Because I
Oh,
did say
you
it was
resigned.
as of the,
that's right.
Town meeting.
That's okay, we
But
could
if the
still have a
four of
quorum.
us-
Yeah.
Could we, yeah, so what's you're thinking a morning, Travis?
Yeah, I was thinking even Wednesday, the 21st, or Tuesday, the 20th, or, and just, you
Yep.
know, a brief period. David, does 8:30 work for you, or you prefer 9 or morning?
Which Wednesday?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Next
Wednesday.
week.
Next
coming?
week, yeah.
And what are we gonna do in the meeting?
brief meeting.
Brief meeting to just,
appoint your fire department.
yeah, potentially finalize the charter if we haven't done that at the prior meeting, and then
You just-
appoint the fire committee.
So this-
I anticipate less than a half hour. I'd like to actually have it 15 minutes.
This is on the 20th or 21st?
Yep. And does our TA have any conflicts?
I'm okay with any.
The 20th?
Whatever time.
Or
Either,
21st?
either is fine.
Do you have a preference? Anyone have a preference?
Nope, I'm fine. I mean, I guess preference is Wednesday over Tuesday, but I
Okay.
don't care.
Then we'll do Wednesday.
Is it at night?
No, in the morning.
Oh, I'm here anyway.
Morning, 8:30,
I'm here.
8:30 a.m.
8:30 Wednesday morning, the 21st.
But we need to post it,
Yeah,
Ryan. And it'll be a Zoom meeting, and we don't have to do it in person.
okay.
Since we're not, can I ask a question about, I know the Carlisle Pride Festival is coming up.
Yeah.
Last year, we had that unfortunate incident where there was the theft of the flags. Is there anything, are they planning anything similar in terms of flags or anything that as a town we can proactively take precautions against in terms of something like that happening again?
Not something I thought of, but we can do that. It is not pride flags, but there are no longer flags allowed
Right.
inside the Rotary.
Right.
So that will alleviate some of the
Okay.
angst.
But if there is anything, obviously, we can do as a community proactively to prevent something like that happening again, that would be great.
Normally, if there's protests, they let us know ahead of time, so, and they communicate it
Not
to our.
when they stole the flags, they didn't let you know. Jeez.
Right. Okay.
That's a good question, Scott. Really good. All right. To follow up on, I know it's late.
I had to Google that because I'm like, that was a year ago.
All right, we have to sign some cemetery deeds here, so could I jump ahead, and then we have to approve some warrants and minutes.
Yeah.
Anybody want to make a
The
motion?
cemetery deeds, right.
Cemetery deeds, that's fine, you can do that first, then we'll do warrants and minutes.
Oh, here, I got them.
You got them? Okay.
Yeah. Just downloading, okay. Move to transfer land in the public burial ground at the Green Cemetery described, deed 840, lot D 333, graves 1 and 2 to Paul Killian, formerly of 436 Westford Street. Deed 841, lot D 151, grave 1 to Hamilton and Carol Bailey at 420 School Street. Deed 842, Lot D 410, graves 3 and 4 to Gail Bernardin at 336 Bingham Road. Bernardin, sorry. Deed 843, Lot D 410, graves 1 and 2 to Kathleen Forelli at 662 West Street. Deed 844, Lot D, 391, Graves 2 and 3 to Frank and Zahava Savoy at 60 Fern Lane. Deed 845, Lot D, 392, Grave 4 to Gail Constable at 75 Lowell Road. And deed 846, Lot D, 391, Grave 1 to Mary Wynn Davis at 469 East Street. And may they all live long and prosper.
Second.
I got that. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. I do need you guys to sign these, they're, I'll be passed down here.
Okay.
I'm gonna need a
As they're
pen. You
going.
have a pen?
All right,
No,
next, we
I do
need,
have a pen.
We need the minutes,
we
right?
need the minutes, please.
Somebody's pen.
I want to make sure that we don't, I'll give them all to
I
you.
move approval of the select board minutes. Do you want them all at,
Yeah, just
three?
a moment.
Of April 1st, 2025, and April 8th, 2025, and April 15th, 2025.
Second.
Subject to amendment, I want to add in the Flannery's letters into this, oh, no,
Of the minutes, is it?
but actually, they
That might have been in
weren't,
subsequent. I
they
don't
weren't the
think-
past minutes, but they weren't into this.
No, they weren't in
They
this
weren't in
one.
this comment.
Oh, is that right?
I don't think so,
In
because
this
there's another
packet.
meeting.
It was the last meeting, right? Not this,
Yeah,
not
right.
one of the ones.
You're right.
you
All right,
just,
so
Are we doing
strike
that
that,
first?
but
add
I want to
that
make
for
sure
next
that
time.
gets.
Yeah.
Fix that perpetual care fund.
And get the article passed.
Okay, any further business?
Well, I'd make a comment, we haven't passed them yet. I want to compliment Gretchen, it was a lot of work, very long, detailed minutes. And I also want to say that I appreciated particularly, right, T.A. McLean quipped that, you know.
Didn't you like that? I thought that must.
AI.
No, I thought that was,
That was good.
I read that.
For sure.
Okay, I see this is the last segment of public comment. I think, Eric, you had wanted to make a comment but didn't before, so please go ahead.
Is that it, just three now?
Oh, his hand is up, yeah. No.
That is
Hi,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. What I wanted to stress, and I wrote a quick chat message, but I thought it was important to stress that the requirements document is all important from my experience in capital projects. And, you know, from the sound of the discussion, I couldn't actually even tell if one really existed in the form that I normally would think of it. But that's where something like your equipment list that's discussed a lot comes in. But that's only really part of it. And I would really, really stress the importance of it where, you know, the select board understands what's in it. The fire chief, you know, obviously has an important component to it. Going out into, you know, other experts to add to what the fire chief thinks and how you go about it, I think is an important idea. But it's all got to be in that requirements document, and that's what the OPM and the designers work towards. That is what the town says it absolutely needs. And lots of different ways you can get to it, but I want to stress that's foundational. That's really all I want to say.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, any further comments from the public? Questions? I want to thank everyone for staying so late.
Just do a quick
Oh,
shout out.
Yeah, shout
I
out.
just wanted to do a quick shout out to the CC Theater who presented Shrek the Musical last week. I don't know if anybody went. We were there on opening night, which is always exciting. And I think at a time where there's a lot of sorrow in the community, having a show like that filled the theater with laughter, dancing, cheering, all of that was very much well needed. And I also wanted to just compliment, not to brag, but Carlisle's overrepresentation in the production. Shrek, Donkey, Lord Farquaad, Gingy, Dragon, and other roles were our Carlisle students. And
Awesome.
they all did a
That
fantastic
seventh
job.
grade play is what really gets them going.
Yeah, and so I think, as a community, we should be proud of these students for all their hard work, talents, cooperation, all the things you want to see in young folks. And just congratulations to them and to all the folks at Carlisle Public that are nurturing them with the plays and the production. So great job all around, and we should all be proud.
Yes.
Hey,
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're done.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Wow.
Kate?